Welcome my beloved student, how you doing? Hope you all are doing great and lovely. In this video we are gonna see, what if Deku had a superior machine quirk? This is part 2, and for more amazing content, leave a like, share and subscribe. And I wanna thank the author of this story named Green and Freckley by QuirkMachineSuperior. So do check out and leave kudos. Let's get in the video. Okay, mom, I'm going now, I can't be late. Izuku desperately swept his backpack up, opening the door. Izuku, wait. Inko stopped him, pulling him in for one last hug. I'm proud of you. Do good. Hugging her back, Izuku couldn't help but think back to last night. Izuku, I have something for you. Inko walked into the living room, interrupting her son's analysis of a new story. She held a wide cardboard box in front of her, setting it down on the coffee table in front of the couch. What is it? Izuku asked, hands hovering over the box as he waited for his mother's approval to open it up. Go ahead and see. Inko smiled. Lifting the lid off, Izuku's eyes widened in comprehension. He carefully pulled out the contents. His mother had carefully sewn together a green jumpsuit. The light green material had white stripes and highlights down the sides and limbs. Black elbow pads and chest pieces were folded carefully under the jumpsuit with a set of white gloves. Freckles helped a bit with suggestions. He picked out some relatively cheap body armor. After Izuku had graduated from Aldera, Inko had taken to speaking with Freckles more often. They had a lot of common ground on wanting Izuku to be as safe as possible. It's perfect. Izuku's smile made the hours spent laboring over the sewing machine worth it. Oh, and this, also Freckles demand, more than a suggestion. Inko used her quirk, pulling an object towards her from the other room. A durable-looking black dual sport helmet flew into her hand and was passed to her son. Izuku went quiet, staring at his reflection in the clear visor. It's because of the brick, isn't it? Izuku's eyes narrowed suspiciously. He did mention something about it being practical for heroics. Inko admitted. Considering the potential collateral damage of your quirk. Besides, your hero costume design had the head erased, so we improvised. Izuku's old hero costume design that he had made in his childhood hadn't survived his changed feelings of the #1 hero. After he had finally moved back into his room, Izuku had wanted to tear down every poster and throw out every figurine, but knew doing so would just rouse his mother's suspicions. They had been fairly expensive, after all. The likeness of Small Might in his hero notebooks hadn't survived, and the head of his hero costume, which bore such close resemblance to the #1 hero's hair and smile, had been erased with extreme prejudice. He still had no idea how he would survive being taught by the man who killed his dream before Freckles revived it. I love it, Mom. And I love you. Thank you for this. Izuku said, honestly, giving his mother another hug. It's the least I could do. I wanted you to know I believe in you and to show that all my doubts have always been for your sake. I can't and won't stop you from being a hero, so I can at least try to help in my way. If that means helping me sleep easy knowing you'll be safe from falling bricks, then so be it. Inko smiled. Finally breaking off the hug, Izuku gave his mom a smile and made a break for the door. I love you. He called over his shoulder, eager not to be late for his first day. Class 1A, where is it? Izuku asked himself, running down the hall as fast as he dared to. The inside of the building was almost as massive as the outside and even more confusing. Izuku felt like a rat in a maze, desperately looking for his prize. Mercifully, he found it. Ah, 1A. Oh, Izuku stopped in his tracks, looking up in awe. That's one huge door. The door to the classroom was probably tall enough, if not quite wide enough, to fit Freckles. He could only assume it was meant to be accessible for all kinds of huge quirk users. Izuku couldn't tell if Freckles had decided to wait outside the building or followed him in, but he was grateful the school scale matched the giant robot. Izuku took a deep breath before opening the door, knowing that he was about to join the ranks of the strongest youth in the country, each hand picked for the greatest hero school in Japan out of thousands of applicants. He really hoped he wouldn't be spending another few years along Katsuki or be lectured by that tall boy, knowing they had more than likely gotten in. Nice classmates would be an excellent change of pace. The first thing Izuku walked in on was the tall boy lecturing Katsuki for having his feet on the desk. It's the first day and you're already disrespecting this academy by scuffing up school property, you cretin. The boy's expression was just as serious as when he had called out Izuku in the assembly hall. Your old school put a stick up your ass. Katsuki countered, a snarky expression on his face at the audacity of this motherfucker to talk down on him. Look, let's start over. The boy introduced himself as Iida Tenya and hailed from Same Private Academy. Izuku was a little impressed, but Katsuki wasn't. You think you're better than me or something? How about you and I throw down and figure it out from there? The blonde leaned forward menacingly. You'd start a fight with your own classmate. Before classes even start. Tenya backed off slightly, scandalized. Bitsuki scoffed, and in the process, his line of sight fell on Izuku. His expression went from disinterested to absolutely hateful in an instant as he made eye contact. You two should be very proud of yourselves. We know we certainly are here at Eldera. Not one, but two students attending UA. Mr. Ad Junior High School teacher name here praised enthusiastically, handing them each relevant paperwork from his place behind his desk. We're sure you'll make us proud as alumni. You've been extremely impressive these last few months, Izuku. And you, Kat. Bitsuki gave a rage-filled roar, unable to take the insult of being congratulated second to Deku. Second to fucking Deku. It was unthinkable. Deku finally gets his fucking quirk and it basically carries him on autopilot to the top. What did Katsuki get for his years of work? A sense of injustice blinded him. He'd prove here and now he was superior the only way he knew how. Fighting for his perfect victory. He lifted his hands, bracing one with the other to minimize the kickback of the huge blast he had been cooking up in his clenched sweaty fists. Before Izuku could even turn to face him, the sound of shattering glass and an unmistakable whizzing sound caused every person in the room to duck slightly. The bullet had flown through the third-story window of the school, right over the seated teacher's head and between the two former students. Izuku and Katsuki turned instinctively towards where the bullet had struck the wall, traveling clean through it. Mr. Ad Junior High School teacher name here spun around towards the window, slowly digesting the spiderweb pattern of the glass with a hole placed perfectly in the middle. Through the hole, Mr. Ad Junior High School teacher name here saw a familiar green robot standing on top of the neighboring building's roof, a trail of smoke lazily rising from one of the barrels of the huge machine gun. When Izuku and Katsuki looked back towards the window, their eyes widened as they realized that Freckles had just fired a warning shot into a school dot. Ahem. Please refrain from using your quirks on each other or school property. Mr. Ad Junior High School teacher name here put his hands together, a look of pure terror on his face. The last thing either of you need is to have villainy on your record before going to a hero school. Understood? Neither responded, not knowing how to tell their former teacher that the top of his receding hairline had been shaven clean by the bullet. It's him. Tenyu exclaimed quietly, looking at what had caught Katsuki's attention and immediately recognized Izuku. The entire classroom, previously enthralled by the extremely entertaining conflict between Tenyu and Katsuki, simultaneously looked towards the huge door where the shy boy had nervously peeked into the room. Immediately regretting not arriving early to not draw attention to himself, Izuku began stuttering out some vague apologetic greeting. Sorry, I'm high. He rubbed the back of his head as he felt his face heating up with embarrassment. Smooth. Good morning. Tenyu didn't hesitate, displaying no self-awareness of his particular behaviors as he marched robotically towards Izuku, introducing himself again. Izuku led him, not wanting to prompt another confrontation. He simply introduced himself in return. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm sorry for my quirk threatening you, he gets like that a lot. He apologized. Think nothing of it. I'm sorry for being so quick to judge you as a bad fit for this school. It's clear you were the superior student. Tenyu admitted with a painful expression. You divined the true nature of the test and its rescue points and earned your way in for it. I was foolish to insult you the way I did. Don't worry about it, it was a stressful test. Izuku assured him. It sure was. A chipper voice spoke up from behind Izuku. That brick looked like it hurt. Apparently the nice girl had been able to get in after all. Oh, hello. I meant to thank you properly for helping me out earlier, but they rushed me to the hospital afterwards. Izuku blushed heavily. I should be thanking you. You got me out of there after all, I would have been a pulp if you and Freckles hadn't saved me. That's his name right? She chatted energetically, excited for the opportunity to make friends. I'm Uraraka Achako, it's nice to meet you officially. Affirmative. Freckles spoke up. Izuku, Tenyu and Achako jolted, seeing the giant robot loitering in the hall like it had always been there. Holy cow, you're stealthy for a big robot aren't ya? Achako commented, craning her neck to look up at what she hoped was its face. Attention. Superior officer on deck. Freckles swiveled slightly to face behind her. At least one of you noticed. Spoke up a grumpy voice from the floor. Quit socializing in the doorway. Freckles wasn't the only one who got around with a talent for silence. A yellow maggot with a human face had apparently managed to slowly work its way right behind the students undetected. Welcome to UA's hero course. It wasn't a maggot at all, it was a sleeping bag. A zipper opened up enough for a slender arm to reach a foil liquid packet to the tired unkempt face, which eagerly slurped it up. The students watched with apprehension and no short supply of horror as the man stood up inside his sleeping bag and stepped out of it like a chrysalis shed by a really fucking ugly butterfly. You can shut up now. We don't have a lot of time to make you all into acceptable heroes, so let's get to it. The man's greasy black hair fell down past his shoulders, which were wrapped up in a thin gray scarf. In stark contrast to his bright sleeping bag, the entire rest of his outfit was a featureless pitch black jumpsuit. "Hello, I'm Izawa Shota, your homeroom teacher." The entire class cringed slightly at that announcement, already sensing a rocky start to their high school years. Most had been hoping for All Might after it had been announced. Most, not all. "Put these on and follow me," Mr. Izawa commanded, pulling gym uniforms out from his sleeping bag and tossing them to students. "That can't be sanitary." Tenya gaped, staring down at his uniform. "And that can't be a pro. I've never heard of him." Izuku thought fast, cycling through his encyclopedic knowledge on heroes, but even with the name, came up short. He shrugged and followed after his new teacher, unwilling to be among the last students to show up again. "Shouldn't we be at orientation?" Achako asked, raising her hand politely. "How does going to orientation make you a better hero?" "It doesn't." Mr. Izawa answered himself, cutting off Tena with a glance just as the tall student began to raise his hand. "I'm allowed to run my class how I see fit. UA isn't the best hero school in Japan because of frivolous traditions and restrictions. The motto is plus ultra, not ultra punctual. Now, on to your assessment." Oh no. Izuku really hoped that this assessment wouldn't be like anything Freckles had put him through. "You've each been given standardized tests in physical education before, without using your quirks. This country would have you all believe that you're all created equal and pretend that those with the most power shouldn't live up to their full potential. It's not rational." Mr. Izawa's gaze passed across the nervous class before settling on Izuku. "Midoriya, you managed to get the most points on the entrance exam. What was your highest softball throwing distance in junior high?" "Oh. Izuku started from where he had been deep in thought. He had been a little distracted, caught between trying to figure out what pro hero was teaching them and stewing on the teacher's view of quirks, which didn't seem to sit right with him. Freckles came to his rescue. "Maximum recorded throw distance. 54 meters. The robot recited, stepping forward. Katsuki clicked his teeth scornfully, proud of his own score. Mr. Izawa eyed the robot distastefully. "Right. Well, go ahead and use your quirk to throw it. Do whatever you want to give it more distance, but do it from within the ring," the teacher ordered him, tossing the ball at his chest. Izuku fumbled with it and slowly stepped up to the pitch. "What is that thing anyways?" "Some kind of ta." A blond boy with a black-dyed lightning bolt watched as Freckles walked after him, shaking the ground with each step. "He told me it's his quirk. I don't know the specifics, I just know it obeys and protects him." Tenya commented. "It's very powerful if he got first place in the exam." "It was. His name is Freckles and he took down that big zero-pointer villain." Achako blurted, eager to tell the story. "Freckles, huh?" the blonde commented, eyeballing the robot. "He kinda looks a lot like a faux villain to me." Freckles' head and guns abruptly swiveled on him, staring him down. The boy paled and other students edged away from him. "I don't think he liked them very much," Achako commented. Trying not to focus on the people talking about him, Izuku played around with the ball in his hand, feeling it. It was much more durable than it looked, with a reinforced band going around it. "Go on. You're wasting time." Mr. Izawa pressured. Izuku considered having Freckles kick the ball, but he wasn't sure that would count. Hoping that his last-ditch plan would work, he crouched with the ball held under his waist, calling out. "Freckles, fetch." And threw the ball up straight into the air as high as he could. Acquiring target. Freckles obeyed and unloaded bullets into the air. Each round struck the ball and burrowed into its surface and sent the ball careening further and further away at an upward angle. Freckles didn't let up, sending more bullets after it to propel it beyond. By the time the smoking, tattered remains of the ball fell back to earth, it was well away from the pitch. "Objective complete," Freckles announced, cooling his barrels. "Crap. Warn a girl next time," shouted a girl with short hair, clutching her ears. She wasn't the only one. "Some of us have sensitive hearing." "I'm sorry. I'm kind of used to it, I forget other people aren't." Izuku apologized. "What?" asked a girl, still hard of hearing. "Settle down. You all need to use your full potential if you're going to make it as pro heroes," the teacher interrupted. He showed off Izuku's score. "Whoa, 708 meters. That's nuts." The blonde complimented, hoping to get back in Freckles' good books. "I wanna go. That looks like fun." A girl with entirely pink skin and hair piped up, smiling. Others joined in, enthusiastic at the opportunity to have total freedom with their quirks. "Fun?" Mr. Izawa's own face broke into an extremely unsettling smile that wiped those off the students' faces. "Well then, let's have a little fun of our own. These tests will gauge your potential. Whoever places last has none and will be expelled immediately. Do not pass go, do not collect $200 dollars." Freckles stepped forwards from behind Izuku, and for a moment, the boy was afraid his robot was about to kill his teacher. He could never expect what happened next. Expulsion from UA High School will designate you as truant. This designation is punishable by death. Freckles announced with utter authority. What? The pink girl shouted in alarm. That's bullshit. You can't do that. A black-haired boy with strange elbows protested. Stop him. Begged a particularly short boy with purple hair. Aloud. Mr. Izawa didn't so much as glance up at the robot, hiding his smirk behind his scarf. This was going to be fun. You can't just send someone home or kill someone. That isn't fair. Achako spoke up. Life is unfair. Natural disasters and villains won't be easy on you just because it wouldn't be fair. The teacher explained impassively. It's your job to correct that unfairness. Prove you deserve to be here and not dead in the dirt. And you do something. Doesn't he obey you? Tenya repeatedly chopped his arm towards Izuku. Freckles, no. Down. Izuku waved at Freckles with one hand half-heartedly, still stewing on the teacher's words. He really wasn't sure whether or not he liked Izawa. Negative. Freckles denied. I tried. You got a rolled-up newspaper. Izuku found himself enjoying most of the tests. For the 50-meter dash, Izuku observed how each person before him used their quirks. Tenya's was rather straightforward, using the engines in his legs to get an unmatched score. The strange girl with a huge green bow made from her hair jumped far with quick succession like a frog, relying on bursts of speed. The pink girl simply ran, apparently unable to think of a way to use her quirk. Then the French boy who Izuku recognized as the one who shot Freckles with his laser quirk did something very interesting. He used a recoil of his own quirk, firing as hard as it could after jumping to shoot backwards. He screwed up the landing a bit, but it still seemed to work. Deciding that he had to make a show of using his quirk, Izuku started giving Freckles orders. Climbing on Freckles' back, Izuku decided that it wasn't worth the risk to run it himself, especially considering he was racing Katsuki. Katsuki put his all into sending himself rocketing off with his explosions, showing no regard for his opponent. The obstruction had no effect on Freckles, who marched forward unimpeded. Katsuki pulled ahead immediately at the starting pistol and passed the measuring device in 3.89 seconds. Freckles caught up and crossed the finish line in 4.51 seconds, but Izuku didn't hear their score immediately, as Freckles had trampled the device, crushing it to pieces. Mr. Izawa had to give him his score, then chastised them for not being more aware of their surroundings. As the tests went on, Izuku came to learn the names of his classmates as they introduced themselves with feats of incredible quirk use. The grip strength test was easy and simple. The tallest boy in the class, Shoji Mizo, managed to squeeze down with a strength of 540 kilograms using his extra arms. Knowing what he had to beat, Izuku set his grip measure on the ground. Freckles, shake. Freckles stepped forward and stomped hard on the device, pulverizing it. After the robot backed off, all that was left was a crater. Jesus, what a monster. The short boy with purple balls for hair, Mineta Minoru whispered audibly. Sir, does this count? Izuku called the teacher, pointing at the crater. It'll have to do. We have several cases of infinite scores with this test. Mr. Izawa tapped the results into his phone. A standing long jump was a bit more of a challenge. Some like the French boy, Aoyama Yuga and Katsuki managed to fly right over the sand pit. Izuku considered jumping from atop Freckles, but decided against it. Instead, he did something he'd hoped he wouldn't have to do. Freckles, up. Izuku ordered, bracing himself on the front of Freckles' leg. Freckles kicked forward and Izuku pushed off, tumbling through the air and landing much further than he would have been able to if he had taken a running start. Katsuki laughed at the poor landing. Izuku had landed in a scorpion pose and without the same distance Katsuki had managed to achieve. The repeated side steps were just a plain strange test. Minoru managed to score high on his test by bouncing between two piles of purple balls that he had pulled right off his head. Izuku thought hard on how he could come even slightly close, then it hit him. Freckles, roll over. Izuku held on tight to the warm barrel of Freckles' machine gun as Freckles spun round and round, picking up speed. He almost lost his grip, but the time ran out before he could be sent flying again. Amazingly, that counted too. Katsuki put his all into the ball throw once they came back around to it. Die. He screamed before letting loose. Full of determination to beat Izuku once and for all, he unleashed a ear-splitting blast that had poor Jiro Kyoka swearing like a sailor. Yayoi Rozumomo gave her a pair of protective earphones in case she'd need it again. Katsuki managed to score 707 meters, much to his ire. His eye twitched at having come second to Izuku again and he began to make moves to attack yet again. Izuku's worries that Freckles would have to step in once more were dispelled as Mr. Izawa's scar stopped Katsuki in his tracks and the crackling of his palm's detonations went silent. "Lem go. What the hell? Where's my quirk?" Katsuki protested, straining against the bonds. "I stopped it with mine. You'd better calm the hell down right now," the teacher responded. His hair was floating above his head and Izuku could see a flash of yellow around his neck. Goggles, the same color as his sleeping bag. Finally, he recognized the hero for who he was. He's Eraserhead. The underground pro hero who can erase other people's quirks just by looking at them. Izuku launched into a muttering session. Other students near him whispered amongst themselves, sharing this new information. Some, like Asuit's Ayu, had heard of him before, but the pro's desire to be left on the down low was apparent with how little recognition he had that not even Izuku had been able to spot him at first. "I'm not going to let that shitty Deku beat me. I'll show you who's best. Screw these tests." Katsuki barked. "Idiot child." Mr. Izawa sighed. "Quit struggling. This capture weapon is made from a specialized alloy and overusing my quirk gives me a serious dry eye." As Eraserhead cowed Katsuki with more threats of expulsion, a deep fear settled in Izuku's stomach. He clenched his mouth shut, refusing to allow his muttering to continue to expose his secrets. What if the teacher decided to use his quirk on Izuku while Freckles was around? If Freckles was going to pass as a quirk, wouldn't he have to disappear? "Man, he really doesn't like you, huh? Do you know him?" Achako asked Izuku. Yeah, we've known each other since we were little kids." Izuku replied. "What an uncouth brute. With any luck he'll be expelled before the day is done." Tenya pushed his glasses up. Even with Freckles' threat of truancy corrective action. "Ooey." Aoyama agreed. "La bombe brûle vivement, mais pas pour longtemps." The remaining tests weren't very notable. Achako managed to score an infinity for her own ball throw, sending it up into orbit. She gave Izuku a high five at both being the only ones to score infinity on any of their tests. Katsuki fumed, ignoring them pointedly. During the 50-meter run, the other students had to either outpace Freckles or move aside to avoid being trampled as his master rode on top. Izuku wasn't the most flexible at seated toe touches, but the sit-ups were child's play after all his training. At the end of it all, Mr. Izawa pulled up a hologram showing off the final scores. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. He had managed to score third place. Then he gulped nervously. He had scored third place, right above Katsuki. At dead last, Minoru looked at the ground. Then he looked up as a shadow loomed over him. Firing main cannons, Freckles boomed menacingly, missile tubes glowing. "Wait, what?" "Freckles, no. Bad." Izuku did a double take, springing into action. Students began taking cover. Todoroki Shoto erected an ice wall in front of him. Kirishima Ijiro hardened his skin and stood in front of as many people as he could. "And I was lying, nobody is going home." Izawa commented before Freckles could fire, with a very amused expression. "It was a logical deception to make you all perform to your full potential. Izuku's quirk was very helpful in that, so I didn't correct it." "What?" everyone cried out in shock. "I thought that was fairly obvious." Momo commented. "Big talk coming from someone currently hiding behind a shield." Kyoka rebutted, pointing at the taller girl's thick police-style riot shield that had ripped out through her uniform. "I'm still hiding for a reason. Does anyone have another uniform?" Momo pleaded, keeping her body firmly out of sight behind the shield. Minoru's eyes went wide as dinner plates as the pervert began edging to the side, drooling as he tried to get a better look. He walked sideways right into Freckles' legs. "Peeping on fellow students while they are indecently exposed is punishable by death," Freckles warned. "Yeah, right. I'm not getting expelled, so you're all bark, no bye." Minoru's mocking was short-lived. "Target locked." Freckles interrupted, spinning up his machine gun. "Rat-a-tat-a-tat." Minoru ran off screaming as bullets hit the ground behind him before tripping and curling up into a ball. He died horribly, shredded into a pulp by the high caliber and fire rate. All that was left were a few blood-stained purple balls, stuck to the ground. Except that didn't really happen. The author simply wanted to give the reader some joy before cruelly ripping it away again. What actually happened was Freckles opened fire, but Mineta managed to hide behind Kirishima, who took the bullets like a champ. "Freckles, no. I'm so sorry, are you okay?" Izuku ran forward. "I'm fine," barely Hiss felt a thing. Kirishima smiled widely with his shark teeth. "No. You tried to kill me." Minoru shrieked, pointing accusingly at. "Serves him right." Kyoka muttered, giving Momo a towel to hide herself with. Most couldn't help but agree. "Alright you problem children, wrap it up for today. Syllabus is on your desks. Study it and be ready for tomorrow." Mr. Izawa walked off, not bothering to make sure if anyone had been hit by a stray bullet. That was certainly an eventful first day. Tenya supplied as both he and Izuku walked out of the school together. I'm not sure I approve of his teaching methods, but I suppose I may as well trust the best school in the nation to know what it's doing. I'm definitely not sure I approved of your quirk use. He gave the shorter boy a side eye and looked up at where he thought Freckles had been, but found the giant robot strangely absent. Well, I don't control him all the time. Izuku muttered, but his explanation was cut off. Wait up. Achako called out, rushing out of the doors to catch up to her new friends. Let's see that I have your names right, Ida Tenya. And Midoriya Deku. Deku. Izuku groaned, not expecting to be called that again so soon. Yeah, that's what Kitsuki called you earlier, right? Deku. She recalled. The scene of the outburst was still fresh in all of their minds. My real name is actually Izuku. Deku is just a nickname he's called me forever now, to make fun of, well, me. He admitted nervously. Goodness, is he a former bully of yours? He really seems to have it out for you to the extreme. It's unbecoming of a hero. Tenya remarked, rubbing his chin thoughtfully as he regarded his new friend. Something like that, yeah, Izuku admitted. We were friends forever ago, but things change, you know. Well, I like the sound of Deku. It sounds like Takeru, like you can do it. Matches how determined you are to be a hero. Achako cheered him on. It's real cute. Deku it is. Izuku blurted out, face heating up to the extreme as he said the first thing he could think of to close the conversation. Tenya made a disapproving exhalation somewhere between a hum and a grunt before getting back on track. What were you saying about your quirk before, Midoriya? Tenya prompted respectfully. Oh, right. Freckles has to obey me, but I don't have constant telepathic control over him. He'll do whatever he thinks he has to protect me. It's caused some disruptions, but I wouldn't give him up for anything. Izuku explained. He's sort of like a big brother, huh? Achako laughed. You do look a lot alike. All green with the freckles. I'm well aware of how protective he is. Tenya recalled, grimacing. He's quite dangerous as well, but I suppose gun quirks can't help but be a little dangerous. Hopefully Freckles can be taught that he doesn't always have to go for the kill. Izuku traced the wires leading from the limb sockets to more piles of junk. What he uncovered were some of the biggest and heaviest looking guns he had ever seen in his life. Fear clutched his chest for a moment. Hey, if I do put you back together, you aren't going to just go on a rampage and kill all humans, are you? We're. Okay, but like, do you promise? This suddenly feels a lot more dangerous. Can I trust you? The robot was silent for a moment. Izuku felt like he was being watched, studied. We're. How dangerous does a quirk have to be before it's considered villainous? Gunhead has Gatling guns on his forearms, so he supplements it with martial arts to seem less dangerous. Izuku wondered. But you'd never catch Kacchan trying to be less scary. Honestly, I did name him Freckles to make him seem less scary, but then the quirk registry had to go and name my quirk giant killer robot. That was annoying. Freckles made a pretty good rescue hero though. That's what I want to be, saving people from disasters. He managed to stop that rubble from crushing us. If you ask me, he defines going beyond being just a weapon. He's a hero in his own right. Achako judged. Izuku couldn't agree more. The warm feeling welled up in his chest, similar to how he felt when he talked with Freckles. He'd been absolutely terrified at the thought of being a social pariah again, and he'd forgotten what it was like to have real friends. It felt good. It felt unreal, like living someone else's life. Freckles was a real friend, realer than most. Where would he even be without him? What do you think so far? Principal Nezu of UA High School asked, offering a cup of tea to All Might. All Might passed graciously with a gesture, not having the stomach for it. They were impressive, all of them. Even the little stumpy one has potential for real growth and change. As Awa mentioned, it was a big improvement from last year. All Might shared his thoughts with the quirked animal, taking quiet sips from the offered cup. I wasn't too big on the exam frontrunner. Seems like he can barely control that robot of his. The second place boy didn't seem much better, too much bark and bite. I think I'd like to wait and see what happens with the sports festival. Are you sure you don't want to go with Night Eye's suggestion? Nezu asked. He is promising. He'll be an amazing hero, even without one for all. I know that. He doesn't need it. I look at him and I can't shake the feeling Night Eye is just trying to make another me. I don't need another me. I need someone who can be better than I was. All Might bemoaned. I know I don't have much time left, but I'm going to hold out, damn it. I know the right choice is right under my nose. I just have to find it. Being taught by pro heroes was something Izuku still had to get used to. The lessons themselves weren't particularly difficult, but stopping himself from muttering about the heroes was. This included when the teacher he was most worried about barged into the room. I am here. Coming through the door like a hero. All Might bellowed, cape billowing into the classroom as he leaned through the door heroically. The entire class freaked out. Izuku freaked out because he had absolutely not been ready for this. He dropped low in his seat, terrified that he'd be seen and singled out among his classmates. His classmates, on the other hand, freaked out at finally being able to meet the number one hero. Holy crap, All Might. I can't believe it. Dekni's hair stood up on end in shock. He's really a teacher here. This is gonna be epic. Ijiro pumped his fist with enthusiasm. Is that his Silver Age costume? Asui Tsuyu asked, putting her finger to her chin in thought. Yeah, it is. He changed to that outfit when he returned to Japan from his training in America. Izuku muttered. Then once he got to the top 10, he switched to the current version. Itsuki growled and Izuku clasped his jaw shut. His muttering had gotten him odd looks again, but no comments. Tsuyu stared at him from the corner of her eye across the room. Hello, kids. Now, we will begin to get into the basics of fighting for good. Today's lesson, battles. All Might put on a show, flexing to get the class pumped up. It worked. Izuku gulped nervously. He didn't like the way Kitsuki was smiling at him. Kitsuki never smiled at him. This was gonna be bad. Now then, grab your equipment. The first step to being a hero is looking like one. So grab your costumes and meet me in training ground beta. All Might ordered, pointing to where panels slid out of the walls, containing numbered cases. Your training begins now. Holy crap, everyone looked good. The clothing company that UA collaborated with didn't take half measures. Izuku received compliments from a very armored Iida on his good sense of protective wear. Armor isn't just practical to me. Tenya shared. It's symbolic to my family. It is very practical to be wearing full protection at high speeds though. I ended up with lots of bruises when my quirk first came in. The taller boy fiddled with his sleek helmet, making sure it was on comfortably. Izuku held his own helmet under his arm as the two walked into the battle center. I kind of feel silly. My mom made my costume as a show of support. It means a lot to me, so I don't want to replace it with the support company's take on it quite yet. Izuku admitted. Nonsense. You look plenty heroic and tactical. It suits your intelligence and quirk. Tenya assured him. Yeah, Deku. You look fine. At least yours isn't so. Ichako broke into the conversation, startling Izuku slightly. Form-fitting. Izuku's black padding and green jumpsuit was slack enough that it was comfortable enough to walk around with. Ichako's, by comparison, was spandex and left fairly little to the imagination. I took some inspiration from 13. I should have said I didn't want something so tight. Ichako complained a bit. Wearing this makes me feel chubby. Girl, I already told you in the locker room, you ain't chubby. You got a full figure and you should be proud of it. Mina clapped her on the back with a wide smile. She raised an eyebrow at Izuku, who had gone pinker than she was. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, you could ask for a change. Izuku forced down a stutter, trying to ignore the sweat beading through his jumpsuit. I think it's a marketing default of some sort. Tons of female heroes have skin-tight costumes. Did you see that one heroine who debuted a while back, Mount Lady? I was there for the villain attack. She stopped, and the first thing all the reporters on the scene did was take pictures. From behind. That's a bit disgraceful. Tenya winced. Is it misogynistic or misguided of me to say that sort of stuff dilutes the valor of heroics? Not that it's any woman's fault for being pressured to wear something. Hey, I picked out this fit. Mina pulled on her turquoise camouflage leotard. Capes aren't my thing. I just wanted flexibility for my sick moves. I mean, Yamomo has to have skin exposed for her quirk. Every individual case is so specific. But if I want more popularity, I gotta keep it tight. Ichako looked a bit ill. I don't know how I feel about that. 13 is still pretty popular. Tight clothes aren't everything. Izuku assured her. 13 is my favorite. Ichako's face lit up with a bright smile. She's what inspired me to get into rescue heroics. Izuku was rescued from feelings he absolutely wasn't ready for by Kitsuki of all people. Get out of my way, extras. He snarled, shoving past Izuku, knocking the helmet out of his grasp. Quit standing around talking about pointless crap. I got some heads to knock together. Geez, grumpy, much. Mina pouted. He's always like that. Izuku assured her, bending down with his face flushed to retrieve the helmet. Ichako beat him to it, floating it to him with his quirk. He's just a bully. Hopefully he meets his match during his battle. Ichako frowned after Kitsuki. Are you okay? Those grenade things look like they hit hard. I'm fine. Izuku took his helmet, wiping away the scuffing. Not 5 minutes in costume, and Kitsuki was already messing with his mom's hard work. As appalled I am at his treatment of his classmates, he's right about one thing. Let's hurry and make sure we're punctual. Tena chopped his arm, speeding off, leaving the others running in his dust into the training ground. Alright, are you ready, you bunch of newbies? All Might shouted out to the gathered class. Let's get this. Midoriya Izuku. A familiar menacing mechanical monotone spoke out from behind the hero. All Might jumped badly, extremely startled to find the Midoriya boy's giant killer robot looming right behind him. Goodness, you just come from nowhere. Don't give a middle-aged man a heart attack. All Might's smile became nervous and strained. Freckles ignored him, staring down Izuku with a non-expression usually reserved for faux villains. Hi. What's up, Freckles? Izuku asked as most of his classmates edged away from the robot's line of sight nervously. Hi Freckles. Achako waved, full of friendly energy. Freckles turned to face her briefly, then looked back at Izuku, bloodlust evident. He stepped closer to his master slowly, shaking the ground and making everyone present shake in their boots. Izuku got a taste of how everyone else felt around his fake quirk. Put on your helmet. Freckles commanded. Wah, I was gonna. Geez, Freckles, Izuku muttered, but Freckles was having none of it. Combat scenario imminent. Cranial integrity has proven insufficient in prior engagements. Freckles succinctly explained. Put on your helmet. Are you seriously doing this right now? In front of everyone? Izuku waved the helmet around in an exasperated gesture. Other classmates, including Achako, Mina, Shirohanta, and even Dark Shadow, were giggling at the display. Tokoyami Fumikage chastised his quirk for his behavior. Put it on. Freckles demanded for the last time, missile chambers glowing. Fine. Geez. Izuku lifted the helmet, shoving it down over his head, then had to mess around with it so he could even see behind his crazy hair. Least I don't bug you like that, eh, Fumi? Dark Shadow chortled. Away with you, demon. Fumikage bemoaned quietly, shoving the living shadow back under his cloak. Anyways, let's please keep interruptions to a minimum. All Might peered at Izuku. Under the helmet, his expression was indiscernible, but Izuku had a look of pure terror at being addressed by the hero again. Did he recognize him? Now, before we start, can anyone tell me where most villain attacks take place? All Might asked, putting his smile back on and a hand to his ear. The class began chattering with answers, hands in the air. The bank. Denki guessed. On the street. Momo tried thoughtfully. New York City. Taurus's gloves waved in the air. Others around her snickered. I heard on the street. You're half right. The most common place for villains to attack is outside. This is because most villains are very. He gestured at the class to take a second guess. Big. Mina hopped up and down. Obvious. Mishiro's tail jumped onto the ground expressively. Homeless. Mizo held several hands far above everyone else, having heard Kaja's near silent guess. Dumb. Katsuki barked out. Precisely. Villains are generally really stupid. All Might praised. Katsuki looked taken aback, then proud of himself. Villains who commit crimes in broad daylight are generally desperate, mentally unstable, and/or generally are not using common sense to dictate their actions. These are muggers, people suffering from lack of quirk control, people who think they can do whatever they like with their power. Thugs like that are a dime a dozen. All Might waved dismissively. Villains who lurk indoors, out of sight, are the smart ones. The real dangerous ones, with big plans. The ones who won't play fair. So, today, that's the sort of situation we're going to be playing off of today. You'll be teamed up with a classmate and randomly face off against another team in 2-on-2 hero versus villain battles. Randomly? Is that the best way to assign us? Tenyu interjected, chopping his arm. Well, most hero team-ups are impromptu, aren't they? Izuku supplied, voice muffled a little under the helmet. You don't choose when villains attack and who you have to work with. Things just happen and you have to do the best with what you got. Exactly. All Might gave a thumbs up, startling Izuku out of his explanation. God, he was glad nobody could see how unhappy he looked to be addressed by All Might. Katsuki's expression soured at hearing the hero praise the owner of the highest name on his shit list. I understand, please, continue. Tenyu bowed. So here's the story. 2 villains will hide a nuclear bomb wherever they choose in the test building. 2 heroes will infiltrate the building and engage the villains. Heroes win if they touch the bomb or capture both villains. Villains win if they run out the clock or capture both heroes. Any questions? Shouldn't we get some sort of basic training for combat first, Kiro? Sai wondered, hunching nervously. This is your basic training. You'll figure out what you need to improve upon down the line. All Might waved dismissively. Don't worry too much. Just do your best. Izuku felt slightly more confident, knowing he had already done basic combat training with Freckles. It would be his first time applying his practice to real people, but with Freckles' help, he had faith he could beat anyone here. Not only that, he had Achako's help too. Great, we're teamed up. Achako looked excited at the pairing announcement. Izuku was glad his nervous blush was concealed, but couldn't stop his tic from making him rub the back of his helmet. Are girls usually this nice? Grow the fuck up, Izuku. Enya, on the other hand, was trying to start over for the second time with Katsuki. I suppose we'll make a good, he was cut off nearly instantly by Katsuka's palm in his face. Quit yapping, glasses, unless you want to go through this fight blind. The shorter boy threatened, not even looking. The nerve. Tenyu grumbled before facing the teacher again. So, our first fight will be All Might reached into 2 boxes before pulling out balls with the team letters written on them. B and A. These guys. All Might announced jovially. Team A will be the heroes. Team D will be the villains. Good luck you guys. Katsuki looked at Izuku and bared his teeth in what was barely recognizable as a smile. Oh no. Katsuki, that's the guy who picks on you, right? Ochako asked. You seem pretty nervous about this fight. Yeah. He's crazy strong. Plus, this fight takes place indoors. I'm not sure how good my quirk is gonna be for this. Izuku said glumly. Freckles can't exactly follow us inside. The halls are way narrower than the schools. I know how you feel. I don't feel quite ready for a fight against Iida, much less Bakugo. So, what's the plan? Just go for the bomb and win by tagging it. Ochako suggested. That might be all that we can do. We can be sure that Kacchan won't be at the bomb, though. He'll be roaming the halls, looking for me to take a preemptive strike. I think we can also assume the bomb will be on a higher floor where we'll have to go past him eventually to reach it. There's no other way in, unless Izuku trailed off into unintelligible mutterings that Ochako had a hard time following, but she didn't interrupt him. Better to let him keep that trail of thought going if he got an idea to win. If she wanted to make her parents proud, she'd do that by telling them she won her first fight of the year. After a minute straight about muttering something about collateral damage, Izuku's helmet tilted upwards to where Freckles was standing ready for orders, and Ochako heard him suck in a deep muffled breath. I need to ask All Might something. Izuku declared, standing up. So, I've finished clearing out the room. Your Raka won't have any ammo to work with. Tenya said proudly, chopping his arm across the room. Whatever. You stand guard here, keep the bombs safe. Katsuki grumbled, moving out of the room as All Might announced that the attackers could enter the building. Where are you going? Surely we'll be better at defending as a team. Tenya protested, dismayed at his continued inability to get any reasonable cohesion from his teammate. I don't care about all that. You think villains care about teamwork? Katsuki mocked. I'm on my way to beat the hell out of that shitty Deku. That stupid robot of his isn't going to be able to follow him into this building. Freckles still has formidable ranged weapons. What if he shoots into the building, randomly? Tenya asked, chopping his arm confrontationally. Who the fuck is free? Katsuki's refusal to remember names unassigned by him was interrupted by said robot firing seemingly randomly at the building. Boom 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 boom. The wall facing the street was torn apart by missiles, and the entire building shook and bucked under the strain of losing a whole wall. Rubble bounced off of Tenya's armor and Katsuki's gauntlets as they shielded themselves from the unexpected attack. The pair of figures floated upwards ominously into the new open space, and Ochako released Izuku and herself from the effects of her quirk. Shortly after, a hefty impact left the ceiling above them buckling under the weight of Freckles. Step 1 of Izuku's plan had been locating the bomb. That was easy enough, Katsuki and Tenya had no means to fool Freckles' sensors. Step 2 was smashing a hole in the wall to attack from an unexpected angle. Step 3 was using Ochako's quirk to float their way through the newly made opening, as well as give Freckles an easier way up to the top of the building to provide support. Izuku still wasn't sure how he'd gotten on that roof a few months back. Step 4 was to grab the bomb. Izuku was wishing he spent a bit more time on step 4, but he'd barely managed to get Ochako to agree to his plan before All Might had started the clock. Izuku stopped himself from trembling as he meagerly got All Might's attention, pulling his helmet off. Excuse me, sir. He squeaked, keeping his eyes averted. Yes, young Midoriya, right. You nervous for your first fight, kiddo? All Might assumed, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder to comfort him. Well, no, not exactly. Izuku mumbled. I was just wondering what the rules are for collateral damage to the building. Am I allowed to break through walls? Of course. Go all out, but within reason. No reason to do anything that could get you classmates killed on my first day, so don't bring the entire building down if you can avoid it. All Might answered easily. The last thing I need is the attendance sheet turning into a hit list, so do what you can to keep your robot from outright killing anyone. Yes sir. Izuku bowed, then hurriedly shoved his helmet back on. That boy was certainly nervous for the top scorer of the entrance exam, wasn't he? At least All Might hadn't seemed to recognize him yet. Izuku had no reason to change that fact. Now Izuku could worry about the task at hand. There's the bomb. Now what? Ochako asked, holding her hands up, ready to use her quirk. Izuku thought fast, judged the distance Katsuki and Tenya were from the bomb, and made the choice to keep on the offensive. We win. Izuku grinned. How? Ochako asked. Don't lose. Izuku shouted as he charged directly for Tenya, standing between him and the bomb. Unprepared, the fully armored villain pretender staggered back in surprise at the crude assault, leaning against the comically large bomb. What? Don't lose? That's your plan? Ochako was similarly dumbstruck. Bring it, loser. Katsuki blasted off, intercepting Izuku before he could leap right at the bomb. An explosion to Izuku's padded stomach sent him sliding on his back headfirst into a pillar, but he recovered quickly. He rubbed the top of his helmet as he stared down Katsuki through his visor. It's gonna take more than that to keep me down, Kacchan. Izuku declared defiantly. I got more where that came from. Katsuki replied, and the two former friends charged each other. Take this, you fucking nerd. In the moment the two collided, Izuku had a brief moment of introspection. He'd been afraid of Katsuki for a long time. It wasn't something he liked realizing, much less admitting, but things were different now. Not only was he not afraid anymore, he was ready. How could he ever be scared of being hit by such a telegraphed right hook when compared to being trampled by Freckles? With unbelievably little effort, Izuku spun into the swing, grabbing Katsuka's arm, and flipped him over onto his back with a vicious thud. There was a stunned silence from everyone in the room. Izuku fumbled for his capture tape as he called back to Ochako. I got this. Get the bomb, please. His polite request broke the others out of their stupor, including Katsuki, who immediately fired an explosion from the hand pinned behind his back. If she touches that bomb, I'll fucking kill you, Lancelot. Katsuki threatened as he righted himself once Izuku was forced to let him go. He went on the offensive as Izuku rushed to recollect his capture tape. I'm on it. Tenya and Ochako said at the same time, locked eyes, and sprang into action. Tenya picked up the paper match prop and started running for the door. Ochako raced after him. He's getting away. She shouted, leaping into the air weightless and rushing to the door. Izuku responded by giving an order as loud as he could over the sound of the explosions Katsuki kept sending at him. Freckles, cut him off, north side. At his request, a hailstorm of bullets rained down on the door from through the ceiling. Tenya had been making a break for, cutting off his escape. The fleeing villain screeched to a halt and took a sharp right turn, sticking to the edges of the room and keeping himself a scarce target in case Freckles decided to aim for him instead. Ochako wasn't far behind, kicking herself off of any surface she could to get closer to the bomb. You can't escape, villain. She teased, trying to sound confident so as not to give away how queasy her entirely improvised gymnastics had made her. Give up. Not a chance, pathetic hero. Tenya defiantly dodged out of her reach, clearly beginning to embrace his villainous persona. You may be agile, but you can't catch up to me if you have no ammunition to pair your quirk with, and I've completely cleared the room of things you could use. Christ, stop talking, idiot. Katsuki growled, keeping his attention on putting Izuku in his place. Just because you're pretending to be a fucking villain doesn't mean you have to fucking explain your dumbass evil plan like one. Katsuki wasn't giving his target room to retaliate. Izuku's padding wasn't doing much to protect against the continuous blasts forcing him backwards. He was really beginning to wish he'd gotten weapons added to his costume, something with range. His hand-to-hand skills weren't helpful against Katsuka's onslaught, and Katsuki himself kept himself moving around the room almost as fast as Tenya. Despite the hard-headed nature of the attacks, Izuku knew Katsuki wasn't actually stupid or careless. He had been overconfident when Izuku caught him off guard, but now he was careful to keep Izuku at a distance and not stand anywhere long enough for Izuku to call a position for Freckles to shoot through the ceiling. Both of the villains were running laps around the heroes. Ochako and Izuku were outmatched on their own. Tenya had been smart to remove anything for Ochako to use her quirk on, and Freckles wasn't doing any good where he was. In a moment of reckless brilliance inspired by seeing the floor torn up by Katsuka's quirk where he had just been standing, Izuku decided to kill two birds with one stone. Freckles, shake. He roared, backing to the edge of the room. Katsuki paled and dove to the other side of the room. The mechanical sound of Freckles rearing up was muffled through the roof, but the violent kinetic impact was not. Boom-krk. The entire middle of the ceiling caved in under the force of Freckles' paw, and the robot landed in the room with enough weight to cause the floor to sag and the very building to tremble. Dust and debris filled the room, leaving the combatants utterly disoriented and confused. You idiot, Deku. Are you trying to bring the entire building down? Katsuki coughed violently, waving his arms to clear the smoke from his vision. Ow. Fuck. A fist-sized chunk of cement struck him in the back. Izuku, not suffering from dust inhalation due to the protection from his helmet, had been quick to grab something to use to attack with. No, just getting some ammo for me and Ochako to work with. Izuku replied triumphantly, the determined expression hidden beneath the helmet. Thanks, Deku. Achako weakly groaned from somewhere across the room, trying to find her way to her feet. The dust began to settle, letting the occupants regain their bearings. In the middle of the room, standing upon cracked ground, were Freckles' legs. Freckles' head and weapons was barely able to peek under the rim of the hole he had smashed through. In one corner of the room, Izuku hoisted up a broken slab of cement almost as large as he was, positioning it upright in front of him like a shield. To his left in the other corner, Achako recovered and one-upped her teammate by hoisting up an entire pillar with her quirk, wielding it like a club. In the other corners, Katsuki looked mad enough to bite his own tongue off, and Tenya seemed to momentarily forget what his goal was when he saw Freckles in the middle of the room. Freckles' head rotates around to aim at the villains, briefly scanning Tenya almost dismissively, then staring down Katsuki. "Oh, look who joined the party. Bring it on, Alexa." Katsuki erupted. "Hiring Maine, California. Freckles began, but suddenly stumbled. The entire building and everyone in it felt ominous vibrations course through them as the floor beneath them buckled and cracked. Then, right below Freckles, it caved, giving way to the robot's excessive tonnage. Quirk. He landed easily on his paws, upright, exactly in the position he had been before, but now with a significant elevation disadvantage, as only the top of his hull poked out through the hole in the floor. Then he suddenly dropped out of view as he fell through the next floor. And the next one gave way after that. And the next one. And the next, gradually becoming less audible as the robot awkwardly collapsed the entire middle structure of the whole building down to the ground level. Boom. 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 Oops. Izuku muttered to himself, slightly dumbfounded. I should have factored in the damage that stomp would have done combined with his weight. Beta logged. Attack protocol in urban high ground adjusted. Freckles' voice echoed from several stories down the hole. Awaiting tactical advisement. Yeah, same. Achako admitted, still holding her pillar, feeling a bit ridiculous. Fucking idiots. Katsuki barked out, staring at the gaping pit where there had once been a building. That was your plan. Uh-oh. Izuku sensed what was coming and tightened his grip on the slab of cement. Katsuki propelled himself forward on his quirk, spinning himself as he went to give himself more power. Knowing how easily Katsuki would be able to blast right through the cement if he used it as a shield, Izuku decided to use the slab as a projectile instead. Summoning every ounce of the strength he had cultivated from Freckles' boot camp, he clutched the edge of the debris and lifted it high over his head. Heave. Izuku shouted with all his might, not a pun, fuck off. Katsuki didn't have time to get out of the way of the sudden oncoming projectile that Izuku had shot at him like it was a basketball. Instead, he was forced to blast the object out of his path. The explosion he used both knocked him off his target trajectory and obscured his vision somewhat. Izuku took advantage of Katsuki's stumble back onto the uneasy floor and set upon him with the full force of his hand-to-hand skills. Bring it on, Ner. Whack. Atsuka's challenge was cut short by a punch delivered square to his cheek, twisting his head painfully sideways. He staggered back in stunned silence as he felt his rapidly bruising face through his thick gloves. Swishing his mouth a bit, he spat a tooth out. Sorry, oh god, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. Izuku's boxing stance fell apart as he gestured apologetically toward his opponent. Katsuki just stared at the tooth in shock. It was a lower lateral incisor, completely knocked out. Holy crap. Achako winced across the room. Goodness, do we need to stop the exercise? Iida held a hand over his mouthplate. Braiaya. Katsuki gave a particularly feral howl as he twisted back at Izuku, face stretched into a snarl that showed the dental gap in all its bleeding glory. Throwing himself with another explosion, he body slammed Izuku to the ground. No, oof. Think we're good. Keep, ow. After the bomb, you're Erija. Izuku assured them as he did his best he could even while being attacked. Izuku's helmet cracked against the floor roughly from Katsuka's pin, disorienting him. His helmet faced further punishment as Katsuki brought the full weight of his gauntlets down on it, cracking his visor and sending pain flaring throughout his face. Katsuki was wailing on him purely out of rage, but with no real technique, Izuku realized once he returned to his senses. Compared to being pinned under one of Freckles' paws, it wasn't even a challenge to get free. Izuku planted his hands to the floor to lever his entire body to bring his knee directly into Katsuka's groin. His attacker spat blood into his shattered visor in shock before rolling off him to curl up a bit in agony. Fucking fuck. Fuck you, Deku. A nut tap. He barely managed to squeak out. Seriously. Ligam Sneerius. Izuku sat up slowly, peeling his destroyed helmet off. His nose was gushing blood and his normally bushy hair was flat with sweat. Blood Jayu Bronk Monobes. Bly Hab Tudoob Subthig. Wahaha. Tenya suddenly zoomed past the two, holding the giant paper match bomb right over his head. I am going to get away with this dastardly scheme scot-free. "You okay, Deku?" Ichako called out as she drifted past overhead after Iida, flinging chunks of building after him while simultaneously trying to keep control of her trajectory. "Bib goob." Izuku shot her a thumbs up. Blood was absolutely pissing out of his face, and the injury had given him a speech impediment. "Don't let her get that bomb, idiot." Katsuki ordered Iida. "I'll deal with this little shit, then get rid of her." "Nobjib bly have a nith. Go." Izuku's defiant banter cut short as Katsuki rounded on him and held his gauntlet forward shakily. "I'm gonna paste you to the wall like the shitston you are, Deku." Katsuki foamed at the mouth slightly. "I've got enough boom juice built up to finish you off once and for all." "Katsuki Bakugo, stand down. A blast like that at that range could kill him." All Might warned over the speakers. The urgency of his voice made both Ichako and Iida cease their game of cat and mouse. "Yeah, that's the big idea. If I'm gonna be a villain, may as well be the best villain I can be." Katsuki smiled nastily as he yanked the pin on his gauntlet. "Hakag, no." Izuku cried out. The instant the click was heard, several things happened very suddenly. First, light poured from the nozzle on the gauntlet as it acted like almost a flamethrower. Except nobody in their right mind would fuel a flamethrower with nitroglycerin. Second, Izuku bolted forwards towards Katsuki, keeping low to avoid most of the blast that was coming up very suddenly to meet him. Third, several chunks of concrete collided with Katsuki from across the room, the home run sent by Ichako, trying to do anything she could to protect her teammate. The unexpected onslaught knocked Katsuki's aim sideways. Fourth, Tenya let go of the bomb to burst towards the two unburdened, chopping his arm as he tried to order them to not do anything rash. Unfortunately, he ran with too much urgency and ended up sprinting right into the new path of the explosion. With all that chaos unfolded, what happened next was obscured by the intense explosion. Babuam. Everyone in the room was blinded by the light. Everyone watching the fight through the cameras couldn't see anything through the intense smokescreen that followed. "Hello, are you all okay?" All Might's voice broke everyone out of their various state of stupor as they came to. "I don't know. I can barely see anything." Ichako coughed out, kneeling against the ceiling as she kept off the unstable floor. "And I don't know how much longer the building is going to be standing." "Ol goob dobe harif." Izuku lisped out, waving his arms through the smoke. He obligrated Blee. Jayu sagged Blee agape. "Only Graze, you're on fire." Ichako's eyes widened as she notices the flames licking up Izuku's uniform. "Dyhh." He started and used his thick gloves to pat down his body rapidly, putting out the burns. Anyblay, I got hib." "Boo." Izuku reached down into the dissipating layer of smog and pulled up something orange. He'd managed to wrap some capture tape around Katsuki's wide gauntlet. The bound team groaned slightly as he slowly regained consciousness. "Bakugo Katsuki is eliminated." All Might called out over the intercom. "What about young Iida?" "I'm still standing." The armor-clad student staggered into view, badly scorched and dented from the explosion. "Lucky for our armor, aren't we, Midoriya?" "Baya." Are we still fighting?" Ichako interrupted awkwardly. "Where'd the bomb go?" But the smoke sufficiently cleared away, everyone could see that the paper match bomb was nowhere to be found. "Objective complete." Freckles' voice echoed up through the holes in the various floors. Peeking over the edge, everyone could see the robot had crushed the bomb under its paw. "Oh. It must have fallen over the edge when I.O." Tenya guiltily lowered his arm in a single sad chop. "The hero team wins." All Might announced promptly, with no lack of relief. "The exercise is over." "Stupid fucking loser." Katsuki stumbled slightly as he pulled himself to his feet and spun on his teammate. "You let the bomb go. What was the one fucking thing I told you to do, you total fucking failure?" "Geez, calm down." Ichako pressed her fingers together as she landed on the floor, standing between Katsuki and Tenya. "It's over now. Let's get out of here before this place finally falls apart." "Over? It's not over. We're not fucking done here. Neither you nor the nerd touched the damn bomb. That walking biker bar jukebox doesn't count as a person." Katsuki protested. "Age that bag." Bakugo. Izuku spat blood at his former best friend's feet as he got into his space aggressively. His blood boiled at the insult to his new best friend. His green eyes blazed venomously. The audacity of this little bitch, Katsuki thought. When was the last time the nerd had used his real name? Who did he think he was? He whipped around, bringing his gauntlet up to backhand Izuku with it, but Ichako was having none of that, grabbing his shoulder before he could hit her teammate. "Quit being such a bully. The fight's over." She growled as he tried to shrug her grip off. "Even if it was still going on, you're eliminated. There's nothing for you to do. You lost. Quit being a sore loser." "Hands off, bitch." He growled back, eyes darting around wildly with rage, indecisive about who to attack first. Izuku made the choice for him by picking him up by the back of his hero costume's collar and dunking him against the floor. Achako had evidently managed to use her quirk on the sore loser. Together, teammate began kicking Katsuki back and forth between them like a soccer ball. Katsuki threw a few punches and explosions, but neither member of the hero team let up on him, silently beating his ass. Shit, okay, no. Stop, young Uraraka and Midoriya. This is unacceptable behavior. All Might ordered them nervously over the intercom. Yes. That's enough. This is senseless violence. Cease it at once. Tenya commanded, standing over Katsuki and holding Achako and Izuku at arm's length. Remove your quirk at once, Uraraka. Fine. She grunted, pressing her fingers together. Release. Izuku spat even more blood at his feet as he stared hatefully at Katsuki, daring him to say another word about his friend silently. And Katsuki being Katsuki. I don't need your help, you useless fucking Nepo baby. You had one fucking job. Why don't you go buy a win from the teacher? He snarled, propping himself painfully on his elbows as he tried getting to his knees. There was a tense moment of silence as Tenya's unemotive knightly helmet stared down at his teammate. A furious aura spilt from him as his patience snapped. Then he kicked Katsuki hard. And again. And again. And Izuku and Achako joined in. Collectively, they delivered a good 7 seconds of hurt onto Katsuki, not uttering a single word, bound in a mutual kinship of their disdain for the pathetic soul fighting to keep consciousness at their feet. Enough. All of you stop this now. I'm not afraid to take a page out of your homeroom teacher's book and expel you for this unheroic behavior. Exit the building, now. All Might boomed over the intercom, audibly upset. Only a little sobered, the three friends abandoned the Whoopus and looked for a safe exit. Izuku picked Katsuki up, ignoring his weak struggles, and tossed him over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Achako floated them all to the ground, where Izuku dumped Katsuki unceremoniously at the feet of medical robots. Behind them, Freckles walked out of the building's ground floor, crashing effortlessly through the wall. The entire structure promptly fell in on its lack of load-bearing walls, shaking the area with its complete devastation. Good job, Freckles. Izuku shot him a thumbs up and a bloody smile. Scanners indicate cranial integrity compromised. Where is your helmet, Midoriya Izuku? Freckles stared down at him menacingly. Izuku sighed and gestured at the rubble behind the robot. Probably in deer. Bakugo smashed it anyway. Gan burbed Bly Kobsu mub. I'm gotta eat a new bun. He glared after Katsuki being dragged off by a stretcher. Soptig with better arbor and Ace snored better degree of vision. Do you need any medical attention, Midoriya? Tenya looked over the burns, wincing at the clear severity. On closer inspection, you do need medical attention. How are you even still standing? Cough. This is nothing. You should see the other guy. Izuku grinned cheekily. Achako keeled over laughing, clutching her sides painfully before vomiting all over the pavement. How about you, Iida? You okay? Izuku asked. You didn't need to do what you did. You'll probably get in trouble too now. So be it. If I am to be a villain, I may as well be the best villain I can be. Tenya's helmet hid an uncharacteristic smirk. I'll admit, he got under my skin. Not just what he said about me, but how he treated you was unacceptable. I couldn't just stand by. What are best friends for, huh? Achako wiped her mouth, smiling. Best friends? Izuku echoed happily. Affirmative. Freckles agreed. Crank, crank, crank. Okay, I think that's attached as tight as I can make it. Lem finished the wiring now. We're. After double-checking his work, Izuku pushed the hatch in the armor shut like a car hood, satisfied. That should be good. Can you get up now? Wee crumble. Slowly the robot lifted itself, pushing aside any remaining garbage piled atop its armor. The main body lifted higher and higher, the legs adjusting and shifting weight to stand straighter and straighter. Each footfall and rebalance shook the earth around them. In a surprisingly short time, the giant robot towered over Izuku, who couldn't help but gape up at the show of force demonstrated by merely standing up. Wow. You can walk. That's amazing, I can't believe I did all that correctly, that's. Suddenly the robot slumped violently, its leg seemingly giving out on itself as its body slammed back into the beach. Thud. Oh. Oh no, I spoke too soon, didn't I? Stupid Deku, of course I messed up. Are you okay? Is there something We're Thum. Oh, great, you can walk again. Phew, that was close. Let's see about finishing those repairs, okay? Can you, kneel down a bit? I can't reach you up there. The Koba Municipal Beach Park was odd the more you thought about it. The eyesore that had caused housing prices to plummet when potential buyers so much as smelled the area within 20 blocks of the scrapyard had been more or less abandoned and ignored by the local government. When locals began to hear gunshots and explosions coming from inside the park, it only convinced the general population to steer as clear as they could of the small wasteland. On top of that, the police officers who had been called in by noise complaints and alleged gang activity hadn't been able to recover any such evidence. If there was someone shooting up trash for no reason, they covered their tracks well. After months of sleepless nights, suddenly, a night of complete silence, followed by a shocking revelation in the morning. It was totally clean. Where there was once a wall of garbage, suddenly, all the trash had seemingly been moved somewhere more appropriate for its contents, like a landfill. Now it was a beautiful stretch of coastline perfect for families and couples. Couples especially found the new date site appealing. The elderly homeowners became rabid at the thought of their property values remaining as low as they were and collectively erected no littering signs at every entrance possible, hellbent on selling to younger generations of families and retiring somewhere cushy. Way to hustle, old-timers. At this moment one of said couples was standing on the modest pier overlooking the sea. The date had been suggested by the dude and apparently it was scoring good in the ladies' books. "The sunset is really beautiful here," said the woman, leaning on the railing. "It's not the only thing," the man said smoothly, flicking some of her long hair behind her ear. "It's a shame it's too cold out to go swimming." The woman rolled her eyes playfully. "Yeah, you'd be happy for an excuse to see me in a swimsuit, wouldn't you?" she asked sarcastically. "Do I need an excuse?" he asked cheekily, smiling wide with flirty smugness. She chortled at his audacity and failed to hide the laughter. "Ha! Before the fifth date. Damn right you do. That's fine by me." He kept smiling as he moved in for a kiss. Splash. Clank. The gentle kiss was interrupted by the sound of metal meeting cement. Looking down, the couple could see a heavily armored hand gripping onto the ledge, reaching out of the water. "What the?" Another hand followed, then a powerful figure pulled itself out of the sea and climbed the railing easily, bending it under its weight. It was covered head to toe in futuristic armor. The man under the armor must have been at least 7 feet tall, but the armor easily added some mass. Rusted brown metal plating easily 3 inches thick covered his chest and limbs. The helmet was similarly bulky, with 2 yellow lenses glowing from a gap where a visor would be between the crown and the muzzle. The armor on the chest was burnt black and scored with explosive damage, like someone had detonated a grenade right on his chest, but it hadn't fazed him. The rust damage appeared to be mostly cosmetic as the man moved around just fine. The couple were startled backwards a bit as the man had come from seemingly nowhere out of the ocean. His footsteps cracked the wet cement under him slightly as he advanced. He was stopped short by the woman speaking up. Are you a hero? Where did you come from?" she asked nervously. Her date was less hesitant. "Wow, a hero. Cool, I didn't know heroes even came to this part of town. Are you an Ingenium agency member or something? Can you sign my shirt?" He pulled his collar forwards, offering it. The fanboy in him couldn't help asking, even though he didn't know the exact name for the hero. The woman relaxed a bit and shared his excitement somewhat. "No." The armored man uttered, the helmet synthesizing his voice boldly. Without another word, the evidently not a hero grabbed the collar and simply lifted. He sent the mildly annoying dategoer absolutely soaring over his shoulder into the sea. The woman screamed slightly, watching in shock as her new boyfriend went spinning through the air 50 meters before landing far out away from the beach with a painful splash. The armored man walked on, ignoring the cries of the woman behind him. He strode on the beach, metal boot sinking into the sand with his weight, and stopped halfway away from the water, something in the sand catching his attention. He fell to his knees with a violent thud and began digging efficiently, clearing 6 inches of sand away before finding what he was looking for. A heavy caliber bullet. Getting to his feet, the yellow lenses stared at the bullet resting in his palm, analyzing it before he crushed it to powder in his fingers and flung it aside. Then he walked right off the beach, clearly on a mission. "Okay, does your speaker work now?" Testing. 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 The booming robotic voice matching the serious nature of the owner's stature echoed across the beach. "Whoa. That's loud. But good. You can speak." Mantis-class military assault droid reporting for duty. Awaiting orders. The robot stood tall, ready for action. "Wow. Where do you come from?" "No data present." The robot answered after searching its databanks for a moment. "What? Well, who made you? How did you get here?" "No data present." The robot answered again. What's your name?" "Mantis." "No designation available. Awaiting designation from superior officer." "Who, me? I'm your superior officer?" "Affirmative." "So you'll do whatever I say?" "Affirmative." "Holy cow, this is a lot to take in. Do those guns actually work?" The robot turned on its torso and unleashed a spray of bullets into a pile of garbage. It followed up the bullets with a volley of rockets, leaving a smoldering crater behind. Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat boom 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 boom. Affirmative. All systems operational. Sensors online. Active camouflage ready. Primary locomotion online. Shields at 100%. Weapons nominal and ready for combat. Oh. My. God. Oh my god, we need to jet it or harassment will ever here to denkamethanasuteriging. Where'd you go? The robot had disappeared right before his eyes. He blinked and it was simply gone. Had he imagined the whole thing? Active camouflage online. Undetected by enemy soldiers. No enemy soldiers detected. The ears started turning in the young teen's head as he thought back to what Katsuki had told him earlier that day. Pray for a quirk in my next life. Command not recognized. The robot interrupted his mumbling. Oh sorry, ignore that. I'm just thinking. He assured him. I mumble, it's a bad habit. Anyways, could you, pretend to be my quirk? Requesting definition of quirk. The robot asked, clearly willing but not understanding how to follow the order. Everyone I know has an ability that makes them special. Some people can fly, change their bodies, and are just better. I'm the exception, nothing makes me special. But you can just disappear whenever you want. Affirmative. But could you pretend that you're my ability? That I can summon you out of nowhere to fight with me? Could you help me become a hero? I can't be one without a quirk, but with you, maybe I have a chance. Command acknowledged. Standing by for assignment and designation. Izuku wrapped his arms around the leg of the robot, hugging it tightly, letting tears pour from his face. Scans indicate compromised bone structure. Advising medical attention. Okay, sniff, okay. Thanks. I'll call you Freckles. Well, now that match is concluded, who would you all say was the MVP? All Might surveyed with a flourish, waving a hand over the two combatants who had made it back to the monitoring room instead of the nurse's office. Tenya and Achako. A ponderous silence filled the room and turned into an awkward silence as everyone came to a similar conclusion. It was very hard to choose, considering how much had managed to go wrong. Izuku, I guess. Denki shot in the dark. He really kept up with Katsuki, even without his quirk. Plus, his quirk won the match. On the other hand, his quirk caused a lot of unnecessary structural damage that only made the objective more dangerous. Not to mention, most of that damage seemed unintentional. The robot fell through the entire building. Momo countered, face locked in a faint frown as she went over the details in her head. It did manage to cut off the villain's exit. Shoto spoke up, startling those around him who were unused to hearing him make any sound at all. This is true. Tenyu chopped his arm towards his classmate. If I had managed to reach the stairwell in time, I likely would have had more options to protect my objective. I also believe Izuku is the MVP. I disagree. His plan was far too reckless and improvised. His victory, while well fought, was quite honestly accidental. Momo shook her head at Tenya. You didn't mean to drop that bomb after all. I'm not saying you meant to either, but I think that might honestly disqualify you from being MVP as well, no offense meant of course. No offense taken. Tenya removed his helmet, revealing a disappointed sort of cringe on his face as he admitted his mistake. I also behaved quite disgracefully, no matter how much in character I could claim to have been. The class collectively stifled a chuckle at the mention of his villain acting. It would be a disservice to the curriculum to name me MVP. When Bakugo was about to hit Izuku, my body moved on its own. I didn't want my friend getting hit by that. What happened after was inexcusable. Tenya hung his head. I'll be frank, in the real world, villains are going to want you dead. You need to fight hard and be ready to defend yourself against anything. The reason I asked young Bakugo to stop his attack was because my professional opinion made me believe that young Midoriya would have no way to survive against such a blast without his quirk there to help him. All Might expressed, moving next to Tenya to put a hand on his shoulder. You are here to learn to be heroes. I don't think you should lose any points for behaving like one, even during an exercise pretending to be a villain. Humming back from the nurse's office from getting a quick kiss from recovery girl, Izuku stopped dead outside the door as he listened to the number one hero explain himself. Well said. Achako cheered. Magnifique. Yuga joined in. Manly. Ijiro pumped a fist. Young Bakugo's technique had similar issues to young Yaoi Rozu's criticism. His attacks were too powerful for an indoor space such as that, and he had no real plan or strategy, apart from overwhelming violence. All Might continued. I'll admit, I ended the exercise partially because of young Midoriya's robot destroying the bomb, and partially because the battle had gotten well out of hand. His name is Freckles. Izuku interjected without thinking and clapped his hand over his mouth. He hadn't even walked into the room, here he was eavesdropping. God, they were all going to think he was so creepy. Swallowing heavily, Izuku turned around the corner, hunched over himself and rubbed the back of his head embarrassedly. Deku? You're okay. All better. Achako rushed forwards, getting a close look at his nose. K. 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 Izuku uttered, entirely overwhelmed by having the opposite gender in a position that had even the barest fraction of a possibility to end in a kiss, on top of having the attention of around 20 people on him. Achako seemed to realize this 5 seconds too late. You're not in any pain, are you? I'm so sorry, she trailed off, trying to ignore the stifled giggles of most of the other girls in class and the snickering of a few of the boys. Young Midoriya, it's good to see you all patched up. Will young Bakugo be joining us? All Might boisterously inquired about as delicately as a sledgehammer. No. Izuku hung his head, ashamed. I'm sorry for what happened. Bakugo and I have a history and it got out of hand. It's all my fault, so if you're going to expel anyone, expel me. Uraraka and Iida don't deserve that. Nonsense. Nobody is getting expelled, you all stopped in a timely manner when I made that ultimatum, so as far as I'm concerned, it's water under the bridge. I'll have words with your homeroom teacher and the principal later, but for now don't let that concern you. All Might comforted Izuku, gesturing under Izuku's head to keep his chin up. Back to choosing the MVP. Where were we? Bakugo was a train wreck. Supplied Jiro helpfully. Yes. All Might exclaimed before realizing what was said. Wait, no. That's too mean. I mean, it's true. Say what you will about Green's Ahem plan, Bakugo's everything was a nightmare. Jiro kept her stance resolutely. He fought pretty well though. He wasn't letting anything stop him and the control he had over his quirk was spectacular. Jiro argued, playing devil's advocate. You have no idea. Izuku muttered under his breath. Only Achako, standing close to him, noticed. Midoriya fought better. He almost bested Bakugo even without his quirk. Shoto's mismatched eyes stared clinically at Izuku, like inspecting something expensive. It's clear he's had some serious training and Bakugo underestimated him. Do we still agree that Freckles stepping on the bomb counted as a win for the hero team? Rikito pursed his distinctive lips in thought. Well, Mina scratched between her horns. I dunno. Probably not. Mineta groused, unwilling to give the robot any slack. Sure it does. Dark Shadow spoke up, popping out of Fumikage's chest. If you don't think so, you're plain wrong, stupid humans. Dark Shadow, please. The quirk's wielder pinched the bridge of his beak and shut his eyes as he whined quietly. No. The quirk refused, its tone slowly taking on a menacing growl. If I got my claws on that bomb, I would shred it to pieces. It wouldn't stand a chance. The umbral nature of this room empowers the demon. I implore you, suppress it. Fumikage groaned dramatically. Most of the students tilted their heads in confusion. Turn the lights on. Momo explained helpfully. Someone flicked on a light and Dark Shadow retreated into Fumikage, hissing. If using a quirk doesn't count, then people without them would be the strongest there are. Izuku grumbled under his breath again, too lost in his head. Hum again, young Midoriya. All Might asked. Izuku yipped, cursing his lack of a filter between his brain and his mouth. If using a quirk doesn't count, then why use them at all? Izuku supplied, trying to avoid eye contact with All Might. Well said. I made the decision to give the hero team the victory and I stand by that decision. All Might reassured him. Izuku was really regretting leaving the nurse's office. Recovery girl punishing his shins hadn't been this bad. Kitsuki wasn't even awake yet. Uraraka should be MVP. Izuku pointed to Achako. Me? Why? Achako sputtered, shocked at Izuku's generosity. Interesting. Yes, why? All Might rubbed his statuesque chin as he looked back at the footage of the fight. A moment of silence turned into a minute of silence as everyone waited for Izuku to explain himself. Mina was barely containing herself. She was a killer for romance and blood was in the water. Why not? Izuku finally responded. She did everything right. My plan wouldn't have even worked without her. Nobody seemed to expect this, but as everyone digested it, it started making sense. That's true. Tenya eagerly agreed. Not to mention, her skill with her quirk cannot be understated, even compared to Bakugo's. She certainly kept me on my guard for the entirety of the exercise. I move for Uraraka to be named MVP. Seconded. Momo raised a hand. Ditto. Mina gave Achako a friendly punch in the shoulder. Affirmative. Freckles joined in. Everyone started violently, jolting away from Izuku, who Freckles was standing over silently as if he had always been there. How the hell does he just show up? Minoru shrieked, clutching to the back of Kirishima's legs. How much of that did he hear? Everything. Freckles stared at the small boy. Even with no face, if looks could kill. Is everyone in agreement, then? All Might tried to wrangle the attention span of the room at large and could only see nods to his assessment. So we are. Uraraka is the MVP of the first battle trial. Congratulations. Now, let's see who's competing next. The remainder of the battle trials went off with far less trouble than the first one did. Some of them were far less messy by comparison, especially Shoto's. The Todoroki had simply encased the entire building and its occupants in ice, walked in and touched the bomb with seemingly zero effort. It was a display of power like that, coupled with nothing occupying him the way he'd had at the quirk assessment, that had him working up a mutterstorm while jotting down in his notebook. Raw output like that, he's easily got the ability to overwhelm pretty much anyone he wants to. Does he have a limit of ice or a stockpile he draws from, or does he affect the temperature of his surroundings directly? What happens if there's no moisture in the air to freeze? What's the coldest he can make his ice without suffering frostbite? Would Freckles be able to shake the ice off, or does he need to risk hurting himself by shooting missiles at his own feet? The ice spread entirely from his touch, so if it shatters, maybe it will be cut off, so I suppose it's more of a question of if Freckles can get a shake off in time. Izuku muttered, entirely unaware of the expressions he was getting from his classmates. Had Katsuki been there, he probably would have interrupted him with a death threat. Freckles, on the other hand, had made it a habit to only interrupt Izuku to mention that his tactical advice was helpful. Data logged. Anti-glacial meta ability protocol adjusted. Parry onslaught with shake. Freckles noted. Parry this, casual. Denki giggled out loud, then realized Freckles was looking at him. Ahem. Wouldn't it make more sense to just, shoot through ice? Is ice bulletproof? Todoroki seemed to think so. Yesterday he put a shield up to block Freckles' bullets. Izuku trailed off as he realized he'd been muttering again, and nobody had stopped him. He looked around embarrassedly. Sorry for the muttering, it's a bad habit I have. I know it's creepy, I'll stop. Izuku buried his face in his book a bit. It's not that creepy. Achako reassured him, unconvincingly. The sweating gave it away. The muttering's not creepy, but do you usually take notes on people's weaknesses? Jiro poked an earjack towards the book in Izuku's hands. And no. Of course not. Izuku lied. Affirmative. Freckles confirmed at the exact same time. Freckles. Izuku groaned. Okay, newbies, I know this is silly to ask, but who do you think was the MVP that round? All Might returned with the participants of the second battle trial in tow. Izuku slipped his notebook away where it wouldn't be seen. The school day came to a close, but not before Katsuki had returned to their homeroom. After everyone else had gotten some sparring in, the conflict between Izuku, Achako, Tenya, and Katsuki hadn't seemed like a big deal anymore. He was welcomed back with open arms and was immediately bugged by the likes of Ijiro and Mina. You should have seen it, man. He froze the entire building in seconds. Then he just walked in and won like it was nothing. Ijiro regaled him for only the 80th time in a row. So manly. Shitty hair, if I gave a fuck, I wouldn't have told you to fuck off 80 times now. Katsuki grumbled roughly, resting an arm over his ribs. His eyes had bags the size of a fat saint sack, Santa's present sack, get your mind out of the gutter. He was trying to save face and seem tough, but he was exhausted. He wasn't slumped in his chair because of his devil-may-care attitude, he was slumped because he physically couldn't sit up straight. He also didn't have the energy to physically attack either of the goons currently assaulting his eardrums, something they were fully intent on capitalizing on. That big finisher was quite impressive. I'd like to see who would win in a fight. Mina teased. Obviously I would win. Shota declared matter-of-factly, without hesitation. He didn't even look over from where he was sitting, face stoic. Oh, it's fucking on. You fucking milk-dip Cheeto. Katsuki blew up, exhaustion disappearing from his body as he stumbled to his feet in rage, kicking away his desk. Sit down. Mr. Aizawa barked as he walked into the room, eyes blazing blue with a promise to deliver evil unto those with their asses unseated in the next nanosecond. The class scrambled to take their seats as the teacher slammed a pile of papers down onto his podium, keeping the class's attention sharp. Before I pass out this homework, let's address the elephant in the room. Bakugo. Midoriya. He leaned over the podium, addressing the two directly. Is what happened today going to be a regular occurrence? The two former childhood friends kept their eyes on the floor and shook their heads. No sir. Izuku meekly denied. Felt like middle school all over again. Nah. Katsuki scowled at being disciplined. Good. Expulsion aside, I'd give you both detention if I thought we had time for it, but we don't. Make sure you all are punctual tomorrow, there is much to be done. Homework is a peer review of your teammate, due tomorrow. Mr. Aizawa knelt down and pulled the yellow sleeping bag up over his black jumpsuit. Dismissed. Without another word or room for questions, he flipped the hood over his head, zipped up, and tightened the drawstring. Then he flopped right over and fell asleep on the classroom floor. Aped Izuku, eyes like dinner plates. Scoffed Katsuki staring at the sleeping bag with a combination of slack-jawed shock and scowling disgust. Cringed Tenya, handing out the last of the papers. Slowly the class filed out, afraid to make a single sound, lest they risk the unconventional teacher's wrath. Outside, the rest of the school went through dismissal alongside Class 1A. Izuku chatted with his friends as they walked towards the gates. I didn't think things could get any more intense than Aizawa-sensei's assessment, but I was dead wrong. Ochako huffed tiredly, slouching a bit under the weight of the day's events. And floating Freckles really took it out of me, even more than jumping around that room. What a rush. If I had 1,000 yen for every time Freckles had gotten onto a roof, I'd have 2,000 yen. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice. Thanks for holding on to me while we floated up, I'm not too great with heights. Izuku confessed, blushing slightly at the memory. Really? I didn't know that, you seemed perfectly fine all the other times we floated. Ochako could hardly believe it. If that was too scary, you should have said something, Deku. We could have found things another way. I trusted you not to drop me. Izuku mumbled, blushing even more. It wasn't a big deal or anything, and you make me feel safe. You're a real hero after all. I don't know about all that. I ain't as heroic as you'd think. Ochako stammered, letting her accent slip a bit. I just. Snort suppressed Tenya, clasping a hand firmly over his mouth as his glasses fogged with tears, and tried to compose himself as his companions gave him confused looks. Apologies. 1,000 apologies, I was just recalling Snort. This is highly embarrassing. What? Simply I was remembering Izuku's plan. Tenya chortled, bending over a bit as he made a barking sound that was entirely unlike any laugh the other two had heard before. Bwaha. Don't lose. Wasn't it? Bwaha. Ha. I know. I almost sprayed vomit out my nose. Ha ha. Ochako laughed loudly, wiping tears from her eyes. BFFFT. Ha ha. I know, it was bad, but I spent most of my time planning asking All Might about Izuku's excuses, and the jovial mood was cut short as someone shoved their way between him and Ochako. DCH. Laugh it up, extras. Keep laughing. Katsuki glared over his shoulder as he stalked to the gate hurriedly. Both Tenya and Ochako made moves to go after him, but Izuku blocked them with his short but shockingly strong arms, planting them in place. He didn't so much as budge from either of their forces. You great big bully. I oughta. Ochako snarled, trying and failing to climb past her friend. Have you no dignity in defeat? Disgraceful. Tenya readjusted his glasses disdainfully where they had slipped down his face from Izuku's continued blockade, still holding them back silently. You didn't win shit, Deku. Katsuki declared loudly. Next time, keep your lackeys out of it. Me and you. Let's see who comes out on top then. No lackeys? Fine by me, Bakugo. Izuku grunted, staring right back at him evenly. The implication wasn't lost on Katsuki, but it was the use of his name that rubbed him wrong. Watch your step, Doof's threat was cut off as he turned away scowling and walked right into something, but it wasn't a lamppost. Freckles stood right in the exit, having appeared out of nowhere. Freckles didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He just looked at Katsuki, weapons aimed but not primed. Stupid fucking McDonald's kiosk. Go do some math, dumbass robot. Katsuki grumbled under his breath as he walked his way around the robot, heading for the exit. Freckles tracked him as he went. Bye it. A familiar voice called out behind them and Izuku's face lost a bit of color. A forceful blur swept past the trio and stopped right behind Katsuki, grabbing his shoulder. I am here. All Might proclaimed. Offering advice like a good teacher. Please stay put for a moment young Bakugo, I would like to have words with you. Katsuki grunted, not turning around but not moving. Right, then. All Might flourished and pointedly jerked his head at the other three students. Privately. Please. Yes All Might. Izuku nodded violently as he switched his arms from in front to behind his friends and hurriedly pushed them around his two least favorite people ever. He apologized to them repeatedly as he ushered them on their heels right out the gates. It looked like he was pushing two-hand trucks, you know, those box-moving things, dollies. With his friends riding them, except there was no hand truck. Sorry, Izuku was knocked back to his senses by Ochako's voice. We're 5 blocks away from you now, Deku. You can let us off the Sorry Express now. Ochako informed him, a bit dazed. Sorry. I'm sorry, I kinda panicked. Izuku apologized again. Sorry. You apologize a lot. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I mean Izuku hung his head, realizing talking wasn't helping. You have nothing to be sorry for. Tenya stiffly patted down his uniform where it had been ruffled in by Izuku firm pushing. Although I suspect these shoes are now ruined, I go through shoes more regularly than usual with my speed, so it's nothing to be concerned about. Speak for yourself. Ochako grunted as she checked her own heels. Has anyone ever told you that you're like freakishly strong, Deku? Like, wow. I didn't mean to ruin your shoes, I just wanted to get away from All Might. I'll pay for them. Izuku offered. Get away from All Might? Why? Achako asked. I noticed you weren't happy being around him during the trial. So, can you be a hero? Not without a quirk. I don't have any money on me right now, but I'll bring some tomorrow to buy you new shoes. Izuku promised. His voice and expression sounded hollow. What? Deku, you don't need to. I'll sigh guys. Gotta get home before my mom gets worried about me. He gave farewell while walking off briskly, disappearing into the crowded bustle of the rush hour before either of his friends could stop him. Pardon my French, but the fuck was that? Achako exchanged a worried look with Tenya. I haven't a clue. The tall boy tried peering over the crowd but couldn't see his far shorter friend anywhere. I hope we didn't offend him somehow. It wasn't a good night for Izuku. Freckles, having followed his master home invisibly, had attempted to provide emotional support before Izuku went inside. Izuku leaned his head against the robot's thick hull, but he didn't have it in him to talk about anything. He just wanted to sleep. Sleep wasn't much better. His nightmares were filled with the usual repressed crap, stuff about being a quirkless loser and a lying freak. By the time next morning rolled around, Izuku was well rested with a bad mood hanging over his head like a storm cloud. He wasn't angry, per se, just unhappy. That bad mood didn't go away when he saw what, or rather who, was blocking the entrance to UA. What can you tell us about All Might as a teacher? Asked a horde of reporters to every student that tried to cross through the front gate. What's it like learning under the number one hero? He's okay, I guess. Awkwardly remarked an upperclassman. He's really cool. He brought his Silver Age costume to class yesterday. Told another upperclassman, a little more enthusiastically. I'm in Gen Ed, you crackheads. Move already. I'm trying to get to class. Said a particularly tired-looking purple-haired student, impatiently waiting for a woman reporter to stop blocking his path. The last thing on earth that Izuku felt like being interrogated on was All Might. What was he supposed to say? Wow, All Might is the best hero ever and I want to be just like him when I graduate and he didn't crush my dreams to a pulp a few months ago, nor cause me to attempt suicide and I don't spend every second in his presence, afraid he'll recognize me as the one kid who knows the most. Devastating secret in Japan that could shake hero society to its core and out me as a quirkless fraud, using some robot I found in a pile of junk to regain my shattered dream. Oh, had he not been breathing this whole time? In and out, Izuku. Breathe, Dumbus. Izuku's inner struggle was interrupted by Freckles deciding to pop out of nowhere and take some initiative. Clear a path. Freckles stomped forwards intimidatingly, making reporters scatter to either side of the gate. Oh, no. Freckles, wait. Be nice. Izuku ran after his friend, waving his hand to try to stop the robot from attempting to kill anyone. Morning, Midoriya. I'd get to class if I was you. The vultures aren't going to take kindly to your public display of quirk usage. Izuku's teacher drew from the gate, almost smiling as he looked over at the panicked reporters. And all of you, that's enough questions. You've harassed my students enough. All Might isn't even here today. Izuku's mood instantly brightened hearing that. Ushering Freckles past the UA barrier and subtly asking him to cloak back up, he kept a smile on his face as he tried to get to class before his teacher did. The barrier snapped shut behind them as the female reporter tried rushing into the school. Her swears and claims that she'd nearly been killed could be heard over the wall. Holding perimeter. Freckles announced to Izuku before backing up and vanishing without a trace off the entrance path into the greenery. Okay. Izuku called after him. I'll be in classes, don't worry about me. Today, we'll be doing something that will decide your future. Mr. Izawa announced with the seriousness of someone ready to see death. You all need to pick a class representative. The apprehensive atmosphere of the class evaporated into every single extrovert in the room, calling out reasons why they would make the best pick. Politics. Silence, everyone, please. Tenya boomed over the ruckus, using the most authority he could muster. The best way to decide would be through a vote. Democracy would yield the best result to our class, as it shows trust in our pick and holds the most faith in each other. Wouldn't everyone just end up voting for themselves though? Sayu asked with brutal honesty, her finger on her chin ponderously. Yeah, you're all cool and stuff, but we've only known each other a few days. Ijiro added. Who can we trust? That means that it would mean a lot that someone did receive multiple votes. If you believe you would be the best for the job, then of course you are welcome to vote for yourself, but think of the class. And again, I cannot apologize enough for my behavior yesterday and hope it does not affect how you perceive me. I wish to only foster a positive relationship with you all. Then you added that last bit at the end rather nervously and more than a little pathetically, clearly hoping he would be voted. Ahem. What say you, sensei? Is a vote not the best course of action? I don't care. Just decide before my nap is up. The teacher was already zipped up in his yellow sleeping bag. With that, Tenya took charge distributing papers for people to vote on and collecting them before writing the results down on the board. To Izuku's surprise and Katsuki's outrage, Izuku won with 3 votes. Momo followed him up with 2. Everyone else either had 1 or none. Which of you idiots voted for that loser? I'll kill you. Katsuki raged over the single vote he had gotten from himself. I can't argue with the system I chose. Tenya admitted, clearly disappointed. I voted for him because he is capable, intelligent, and has the heart of a true hero. So be it. Michako innocently withheld her own vote for now. Izuku was surprised for 2 reasons. 1, that anyone wanted him as class rep after yesterday. 2, after doing some quick math, something didn't add up. He'd voted for Michako. Clearly, both of his friends had voted for him. Who else had? Midori is cool. We could do a lot worse than him. Denki shrugged, satisfied. I can get behind this. Both he and Yaoi Rozu had a bunch of constructive criticism yesterday. I think this could really help us in the long run. Mina joined in, giving a happy thumbs up. Cool. Ribbit. Sayu enthusiastically croaked. I dunno. What's that walking tank going to do next time one of us makes him mad? Mineta squeaked, cowering under his desk in case the robot showed up again. I'm certain Midoriya wouldn't allow anything to happen to anyone. Momo interjected. Privately, Freckles had earned her respect when he went out of his way to protect his decency. As disappointed as she was that she was only voted second in command, she could still see its merit. Izuku stood next to her nervously at the front of the class, speechless. Alright, that's Midoriya as class rep and Yaoi Rozu as deputy. Mr. Izawa said as he woke back up and took back control of the class. Moving on. Yuei's lunchroom was a lot like the rest of the school. Larger than anything Izuku had seen before and endlessly impressive. The food was served by the one and only pro-hero Lunch Rush, who cranked 5-star style meals out en masse. Seriously, does anyone know what Lunch Rush's quirk is? Cause the author of this fic has no fucking clue and is kind of mad about that. But be fucking Hisashi using the face tube to pump his fire breath into the grill, nobody would ever know. God, the food here is so good. Michako happily praised as she got a taste of the good life. Sigh. Guys, I don't know about this class rep thing. Izuku sulked, playing with his food. I don't think I'm cut out for it. I voted for Michako. Wah? You did? Michako exclaimed, cheeks bulging with rice. Gulp. I voted for you. You had a great strategy for winning the trial. Really? Izuku asked, rubbing the back of his head. He really needed to get rid of that nervous tic under control. And I meant what I said earlier. You're brave and a true hero. Tenya said matter-of-factly. And you're strong, which is important in a leader. Really strong. Michako agreed. Like, you pushed us 5 blocks yesterday and threw a chunk of debris almost your size. It's kinda surprising for someone as, no offense, short as you. I know I'm one to talk. I had some hell months of training before the entrance exam. Izuku explained away, dismissing his strength. Look, about yesterday, I should probably explain. I shouldn't have just run off like that. Nonsense. We shouldn't have pushed into something that isn't our business if you don't want it to be. Tenya chopped his arm. You're our friend, we were just worried about you. If you don't want to share, then that won't change. Yeah. Michako agreed. Izuku shook his head and rifled through his pocket. Even so, it'd probably be good to share. Here you guys go. Izuku held out 2 fists with some money clenched in them. No, I can't possibly accept. Tenya shook his head and Michako crossed her arms. I already had a new pair of shoes on standby, recompensation is unnecessary. Yeah, no, I don't want a handout or anything, my shoes aren't that bad. Michako protested, crossing her arms. Please. Izuku begged. I'll tell you a secret. Michako guiltily eyed the money, clearly conflicted. It's not a handout, I'm paying you for something I broke. Izuku insisted. Let me fix it. Michako sighed and accepted the money, slightly relieved and definitely excited at the prospect of shopping for something nice. There was a bunch of money here. Where did you get this money from anyways? Are you loaded? Is that the secret? Michako asked, counting the bills discreetly. No, I just sold some stuff. Some bits and pieces of his All Might collection. Izuku was pretty glad to have an excuse to get rid of some of it without just trashing it. Anyways, I won't tell you why I'm not a fan of All Might, but I will tell you this. Izuku leaned in close, not wanting to be overheard. I was a late bloomer. What? Michako was clearly lost. Well, that's nothing to be ashamed of, I mean, you're not that short, Tenya started. Not like that. Izuku quickly corrected them. I was a late bloomer with my quirk. Freckles didn't first appear until almost a year ago. No way. Nobody knew what your quirk was. Ochako gaped, fully comprehending now. Yeah. For the longest time, I didn't even know I had one. Izuku lied. I've gone through most of my life a quirkless loser. Wait a minute, is that why Baku bitch picks on you all the time? Because you didn't have a quirk? Ochako asked, clearly mad. Uraraka. Language. Tenya looked scandalized. That's no way for a hero student to speak. Well, that's no way for anyone to treat someone. Izuku's awesome, and he was bullied for something he couldn't even control. Tell me how that's heroic. Ochako argued back. It wasn't just him. Izuku muttered without thinking, then realized he'd just opened Pandora's box. Huh? Yeah, pretty much everyone at my old school made fun of me for it, too. Even the teachers, Izuku admitted, but was cut off by Tenya. The teachers? How disgraceful. The taller boy nearly snapped his chopsticks as his anger boiled over. With educators like that, it's no wonder Bakugo turned out how he did. Aldera, wasn't it? Yeah. It wasn't great. The school cared more about what Bakugo being accepted into UA meant to Aldera's reputation than it did actually doing a good job teaching. Izuku gave a small smile at the abuse his old school was receiving. At least things got better after I got a quirk. I got respect. Unbelievable. Ah, that explains why you can barely control Freckles at some times. Tenya mused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. You've only known him for less than a year. It's even more impressive what you've mastered knowing you've done so in such little time. What was it like when he first appeared? Ochako asked eagerly, knowing the story ought to be good. He first showed up when I'd gotten into a bit of an accident. Izuku hated lying to his friends, but they deserved to know at least a little more about him. He saved me, and he's protected me ever since. He actually trained me to fight and to get strong. Mom fainted the first time she saw him. His friends laughed at that, imagining the giant robot just showing up. Speaking of schools, you went to private school, right? Ochako turned to Tenya. What was that like? The education was invaluable. But I learned a lot more about being a hero from my family. Tenya reminisced. The Ida agency is why I'm here today. No way, hold on a second. You're an Ida as in the Ingenium hero family? Izuku realized, his nerd brain short-circuiting at the idea that he had been friends with someone part of a much larger hero family. Ingenium is my brother. Tenya admitted proudly. He's the turbo hero, and he's my hero. I want to make him proud and carry on the Ida legacy when I graduate. Holy cow, so you're like, turbo rich, too, right? Ochako demanded, that's so cool. I didn't want to be treated any differently, but I do have a lot to live up to. Tenya explained. Speaking of money, there's something I should probably tell you about too. Ochako was interrupted by alarm bells going off throughout the entire building and a PA announcement to evacuate the building due to a level 3 security breach. What's a level 3 security breach? Tenya asked a third year right next to him. Someone got past the school's barriers. The third year shouted over the din and got out of his seat. It's gotta be a villain attack. I've never seen. A sound of gunfire erupted from outside and the students began screaming as they ducked for cover and running for their lives. Wait a minute, I know that gun anywhere. Izuku shouted to his friends. That's Freckles. Is he fighting villains? What's going on? Ochako cried out, jostled by the mob around her as they fled through the halls. I can't see anything. Sorry. Izuku tried shoving people away, but there was simply nowhere to shove them. This evacuation is timely, but far too disorganized. Tenya chopped his arm, whacking the top of Izuku's head accidentally in the close proximity. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on. But that he pushed his way to a window, and what he saw made his jaw drop. The reporters had apparently broken past the barrier, but they hadn't managed to get past Freckles. The robot had drawn a line in the front walkway with bullets and was continuing to lay down suppressing fire that nobody dared pass. The journalists in the front pushed against those in the back, trying to turn the tide to get away from . Trespassing on school grounds without a student ID or day pass is punishable by death. Freckles declared. Suppressing fire. What the hell? We got rights. Shouted a cameraman, actively capturing footage of Freckles blasting the pavement to shreds. Yeah. Just give us all might. Demanded the woman who tried crossing the barrier originally. We know he's here. Let us get just one quote. That's enough. All of you, get out of here. Mr. Izawa, no, Eraser had stepped out behind Freckles' legs and stood next to the robot with his arms crossed. You all aren't allowed in here. And this isn't a part of UA security, this is a student's quirk protecting them against people like you. I can't control it, so back off before one of you gets real hurt. Yeah. You're lucky we don't just arrest you for this. President Mick shouted out from the door to the building. You're all giving journalism a bad name. Wait till my listeners hear about this. Grumbling bitterly as they retreated with their tails between their legs, the press backed off towards the destroyed front gate, still filming and speaking into their microphones as they tried to save face. Abruptly, Freckles turned to the left and began priming his missiles towards a hedgerow. Enemy soldier detected. Firing main cannons, he warned, and a skinny figure in a hoodie stood up from the bushes with his arms up. Geez. I'm going, don't shoot. I just wanted some pictures. The person yelled as they ran for the gate, keeping their hood pulled down over their face. What a jerk, trying to sneak in like that. I didn't even know he was there. President Mick looked on with a rare frown as the press disappeared into their vans and drove off. Me neither. Good catch, Freckles. Eraserhead gave the robot an appraising look before marching to the gate. Now, how did this happen? It was the press all along. Tenyu exclaimed, having witnessed the whole thing. So there's no need to worry. Unfortunately, he was completely drowned out by the screams of people trying not to get shot. He thought fast, trying to come up with a way to stop everyone from stampeding. Finding Izuku in the crowd, it came to him. Midoriya. Where is Uraraka? He cried, hoping to get floated over the crowd. I don't know. She got swept away. Izuku cried back, still trying to push people away desperately. We have to find her. She might be hurt. There's no time, I need your help. Pick me up. Tenyu decided, knowing things were dire. You want me to what? Izuku was dumbfounded, barely able to see Tenyu over the tide of heads around them. Lift me over the crowd. Like we said before, you're strong. You can do this. Tenyu waded his way closer, grabbing Izuku's shoulders. Okay, sure. Here, take a leg up. Izuku cupped his hands in a step and Tenyu climbed into them and grabbed onto Izuku's head for support. Thank you, Midoriya. You're a true friend. The much taller boy praised as he clambered up. Don't mention it. Izuku grunted out as he held onto Tenyu's ankles to keep him balanced. Everyone. There is nothing to worry about. The media just broke into the school. Nobody is attacking us. Tenyu called out over the crowd. The bullets were directed at the reporters, not us students. Remain calm and make your school proud. Is it working? Izuku laboriously asked, doing his best to keep still. It doesn't seem to be. I'm going to power my thrusters. Tenyu warned him. Midoriya, I'm going to have to ask you to throw me. I can get a better angle from there. Seriously? And that's why Iida should be class representative instead. You all saw it for yourself, he handled the situation much better than I did and I couldn't even be there to stop Freckles from getting violent with the press. Izuku finished his announcement to the class. I kind of already have a lot on my plate with him. If Midoriya vouches for him, then I'm cool with it. He totally manned up and took charge. I dig it. Ijiro patted Tenyu on the back heartily. Ouch. Thank you. Tenyu was clearly happy, although still sore after having visited Recovery Girl. He'd suffered a concussion and worse when he'd been slammed into the wall above the exit tunnel by Izuku's throw. It was quite a sight and Kaminari still hadn't stopped laughing about the human-shaped dent in the wall. So much for democracy. Momo remarked unhappily. So the doors were disintegrated. The press couldn't have done this. This was the work of villains. Someone cunning infiltrated the school. Principal Nezu summarized, standing at the front gate with Midnight, Recovery Girl and 13. Luckily, it looks like the Midoriya boy's robot held the line. I don't think we're going to be hearing good things from the media for the next few days, but at least the students are safe. The quirk that was used was a lot like mine and probably very dangerous. 13 commented. It shouldn't be hard to find someone with a quirk as notable as that unless their abilities were off the record or the record's fudged. I got a bad feeling about this. Sir. Hound Dog leapt out of the forestry and landed on all fours, panting hard through his muzzle. We found something else. Oh? On the exact other side of the campus, in an unassuming length of barrier at the rear of the school, something even more concerning. A hole had been punched into the thick steel wall. Literally. These are actual fist dents. Midnight traced her fingertips characteristically into the grooves and lined her own fist up to compare. Someone punched through the wall and did it without being picked up by security. Nezu bared his teeth as he strode forward to investigate for himself. Now this is an unacceptable oversight. Was it because there was already a lockdown or did someone actually hack into our system and compromise my contingencies? He thought out loud, clearly a little distressed. Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. Hound Dog, search the grounds, track which way they went. R. That's the damn thing. Nobody came through. I can't smell anyone besides us. Not even a hint. Hound Dog growled, on the verge of losing control out of frustration. How is that possible? Even All Might would work up a sweat punching a hole into this. Recovery Girl whacked the barrier with her cane. Why would someone punch the wall and just walk away? They didn't. RRRRGG. Hound Dog stamped on the ground, pulling at his mane as he howled in rage. There was nobody here. At all. How? Ho. The principal compassed himself, smoothing a paw over his fur as he rubbed some rust he had wiped off the dents between his other paw's pads. Curious. What a fucking waste of time. All that planning just for a secret boss to jump out of nowhere and almost team wipe me and my distraction. Fucking shitty ass tower defense bullshit. The hooded figure snarled to himself, cutting through back alleys and stealing clothes from laundry lines to change into in case the pros had gotten his description and were on to him. Now what am I going to fucking do? Master has everything ready, the league, the Nomu, and all I needed was a fucking level guide to know exactly where and when would be the best time to do the most damage. He kicked a garbage bin, scaring off an alley dog that had been lounging nearby. He scratched at his neck and clawed at his face as he bent down into a fetal position. I can't fail. I can't go back empty-handed, but I can't just infiltrate UA again. They'll know something is up and be even more prepared. His hands scratched faster and rougher as he talked to himself psychotically. Father. Father, where are you? What should I do? I'm going to kill everyone in that stupid school, including the robots. Fucking. CKRNCH. Behind him, someone stepped on the scattered trash all over the alleyway. He spun around, hands at the ready to turn someone to dust. Standing just feet from him, someone wearing a very rusty suit of very thick-looking armor stared at him through luminous yellow lenses. Their stance was that of someone totally ready to shrug off any attack, hands like shovels tightly balled into fists the size of most people's heads. He towered over the skinny young adult in stolen clothing. A hero? Oh, perfect. The smaller man facepumed dramatically. Just what I fucking need, a Halo cosplaying idiot come to arrest me. Why the fuck are you wearing that? What hero are you, Sower Knight 2? The return of shit. Get the fuck out of here before I kill you, then kill everyone in these houses around us just to feel better. The armored man didn't move an inch. What, is your mic muted? Can't hear me, asshole. Scram. He was getting pissed now, hands itching to turn something to dust. You asked for it, wah. The armored man finally moved, just lifting an arm forward and unclenched his fist. Inside was a piece of paper. The villain snatched it, pinky up, and took a closer look. How did you know I needed this? He demanded, slapping the class schedule with the back of his hand. I'm Shigaraki. Who the hell are you? What the fuck you want from me? The figure finally spoke, but Shigaraki only had more questions. Bakugo, I know you are disappointed at your loss, but look at it this way. This is your starting line. All Might consoled his student with a rousing speech. Everyone thinks that being the mightiest is what makes me a good hero, but it's not. Of course it is. Bakugo barked, wiping tears away with his sleeve. You never lose. I never lose. I lose all the time. I'm losing right now, as a matter of fact. All Might felt his time limit reaching and let it go. Steam billowed from his body as his mask broke down. He coughed up a healthy liter of blood for his trouble. What the goddamn fuck? Kitsuki stared at All Might like he'd seen a ghost. This is the real me. This wound. Yagi Toshinori lifted his shirt to show off his wound. Is what happens to heroes. It happened to me. It could happen to you, not because you'll lose a fight, but because you'll destroy yourself. Never. Kitsuki bared his teeth, backing away from his idol. I'll be better than you. Stronger than you. Nobody is going to stop me from being the top hero. I'll surpass you, just like I'll surpass everyone. Yagi frowned as he watched Kitsuki walk away. Just you watch, old man. Yeah, not a good candidate. So, how has your selection been for a successor? Principal Nezu asked him over tea the next day. He'd summoned the #1 hero for a meeting late into the afternoon. Terrible. All Might poured half his flask into his cup of tea, then downed it in one gulp. Then he just forwent the whole tea thing and chugged the rest of the flask. It's not that they're all bad, they're all great. But the greatest are so. Ugh. Oh my. You still don't want to give it to the #1 scorer of the exam? Midoriya. No. That quirk is hardly under control, I don't want to know what giving one for all would do to it. Bakugo. No. You saw that footage. Christ. Right now my eye is actually on Yaoi Rozu and Todoroki. All Might admitted. Both of them are recommendation students. She's wicked smart and he's wicked powerful. I don't know how well the power would be suited to Yaoi Oriza's quirk either, though. Todoroki is also just plain weird. He only uses half his quirk for some reason. None of his classmates even know that he can use fire. If he's neglecting half of his power, is he going to neglect one for all? Maybe Yaoi Rozu is the best pick. Every quirk has pros and cons to empowering it. What do you think of their heroic spirit? Nezu pressed. Some of them have it in spades, others are there for fame and glory, the usual. Too early to tell. All Might grunted. How has the security breach been? Unprecedented and calamitous. The sentient animal placed his cup of tea down and opened a drawer at his desk. He carefully withdrew a bottle of bourbon that looked hilariously big compared to him. "Would you mind opening this? Only if you share." All Might popped off the waxed cork with just his thumb and poured them both a drink into the glasses Nezu set out. "I'm currently making arrangements to up security and I think I've found a suitable way to do that while also giving me more wiggle room," the principal informed him. "A big flaw with my security that was exposed is that I couldn't be in two places at once to both manage the break-in and keep on the lookout for more threats. Even if my system was hacked, there were signs that could have given the intruder away if I hadn't been previously engaged. So I'm procuring someone to help." "Good. Do you need me around to help buff up security a bit?" "Just keep your normal schedule. I'll handle security. You handle finding a successor. I still want to see the sports festival." All Might huffed into his drink, coughing a little. "I know we can't afford to wait much longer, but it's a tough decision to make and at the end of the day, it's my decision alone." "Well, it's only a month away." Nezu agreed. "Very well. To the victor go the spoils. Let's hope nothing happens between now and then to necessitate passing one for all in the meantime." That's it for today guys, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, consider leaving a like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the author of this story. All details in description. Thanks for watching, take care.